What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys checking in. You got me. You got me today. Shout out to my guys. You got Severe, Protect the Show podcast. Chris has some stuff going on. Severe might pop in for a quick minute, but he had some stuff going on as well. But y'all got me today. Obviously, there's been a lot of moves that's been shaking around. I think most of you guys that pop in, you guys kind of know what my take is a little bit as it relates to, you saw the thumbnail. If you're tapping in on my channel, you saw the thumbnail about Dan Orlovsky, the take that he had, what he's got to say about the quarterback situation coming up into this draft. This draft less than a month away. Shout out to everybody that's going to be there at the draft. I'm going to be there. Chris Protect Show podcast going to be there. Severe, we're pulling up. Jeff, I see you in the building. You going to be there. But you saw the thumbnail. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dedicate today to talk about it. But let me bring up somebody right quick. Somebody that's going to maybe help me for a quick second. Tame this goddamn chat down. Severe, what's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
What's going on? What's going on, man? Don't got a lot of time, but like I said, I'm just here to piss the people off and then leave them in your hands. Let you deal with the cleanup.
There ain't no cleaning up on my end. You know that. You know what my take's gonna be. Well, but what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Oh man, feeling good.
Good, man. Okay. We're gonna jump right into it. Shots to the chat. I'll get you guys in just a second because my guy Severe, his time is a little bit limited, but I want to get his take. Obviously, I'm gonna bring up the video of Dan Orlovsky kind of breaking down why he feels Ty Simpson is the number one overall pick. Backtrack. Not number one overall pick, but the number one quarterback in this draft. But then you have takes from from Mel Kiper as well as Tim Hasselback. I'm going to bring up all those clips and I'm going to break it down kind of myself. But, appreciate you popping in for a quick minute. But give me your take. What's your take on Ty Simpson? Maybe we'll take this in stages. Do you think Fernando Mendoza is a number one overall pick? We'll start with that.
No, he's not a number one overall pick, but he will be the number one overall pick. I just think, in most other draft classes, I've said before, he gets taken somewhere in the teens. If there was a better alternative this year, if there was like a franchise pass rusher or a legit franchise left tackle or like a Jeremiah Smith, Kelvin Johnson type player, he might not go number one this year. It's just, this is like a perfect storm of the quarterback class overall being fairly weak and the rest of the draft class, while having depth in certain areas, there's not enough blue chip high-end talent and nobody to really wrestle the number one pick away from him. So it's just a perfect storm.
I agree with you. I agree that I think this is overall a pretty weak draft class at the after the combine. You have players that just kind of what do we call it? The underwear Olympics. You have players like a Stoney Styles. I think Stoney Styles is an extremely, extremely good athlete. I think he can be a good linebacker. But again, if you kind of go back and peel the tape back a little bit, you can tell that he was a former safety. You could tell that he has a little bit of inexperience at the linebacker position when you watch just his instincts at the snap. And so is that going to hinder him? I don't know. I have no clue. But based on his game film, it's tough. So you have a guy like that could be talked about. Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate. I don't think there's a true number one offensive lineman in this draft. So there's guys that could be in the conversation, but they don't compare to previous number one overall picks. You don't have, a Caleb Williams in this draft. You just don't. You don't have it. You don't have guys that could have been in the past considered a true top number one offensive tackle like a Joe Alt. Exactly. It's just not here. And so
or a Myles Garrett or something like that. Like there's not one of those other guys. So like I said, it's just a perfect storm. And unfortunately, we're on the bad side of it because that almost destroys any potential ability that we have to consummate a trade. Because first of all, teams recognize it's going to be almost like the Ravens situation. Okay, what do we really want to do? Do we want to trade up and give up possibly 3 first-round picks to draft Mendoza, or do we want to just stick and pick here at, if you're the Jets at 2, or if you're the Cardinals at 3, or if you're the Browns at 6, you want to just stay here and we'll wait it out and we'll see what happens next year. And we'll likely be in position next year to draft a quarterback that's as good of a prospect or better than what Fernando Mendoza is this year. So it's like teams recognize that. So like, and there's not a coach in a desperate enough position so where they really have to do it. And that's what, like, had the Browns kept Stefanski, the Browns might have done it. They might have done it, but I don't think Aaron Glenn's under any real threat. He's going on a year or two. The owner, Woody Johnson, he crapped all over Justin Fields and said, how do you expect any coach to win with that? Like I've been saying for years, people told me I was wrong about that. So like, he's not in any position of a threat. The Cardinals just traded Kyler Murray, so we know what they're doing. So like, there's no other team that's really there that's going to trade up for him. So, and he's going to go number 1 overall. So we're in a position where we either buck the trend and draft a different position, almost not. I don't even see almost like the year that the Texans didn't draft Bush, because I mean, like an edge is a more premium position in a running back. And I think that's something they recognized that year. That's why they went Mario Williams over Bush. I think that was probably the biggest number 1 overall surprise we've had recently. But other than that, like usually the foregone conclusion of number 1 is the guy that goes number 1.
No, 100% agree. And you brought up like the Cardinals, right? The Cardinals, I think we've spoken about this before. I think with all the head coaching moves this past offseason, it's kind of been like a perfect storm, right? A lot of head coaching moves, which now these coaches, they're not necessarily dialed in to have to get a quarterback. They've given some time. They can skip on a quarterback if they don't need it, because again, they have time. But it's kind of a perfect storm for us almost, in a sense that Fernando's the best one to 98% of the people out there, and we need a quarterback. No one's going to argue that fact. But the question is Fernando Mendoza worth that number 1? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down just some of the things that I feel you have to take in consideration when you're evaluating Fernando Mendoza. I have about 8 different bullet points. And hey, when I break out the bullet points, get ready. God damn it. But I have about 8 different bullet points as to why I think we're just overvaluing Fernando Mendoza. And you have to take it consideration if you consider him the number 1 overall pick and what your expectation is of that. So I'm going to get your take on Ty Simpson. I know your time is limited. I appreciate you popping in, but I'm saying what's up to chat. Jeff, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you popping up in here. Where's the flag? What's happening? Jay, what's going on, brother? Jason in the building. I'm going to be solo soon. All right. Trust me, Jason. You're gonna get yours.
Jason's ready to yell at you in the chat. He's gearing up.
100%. My opinion, what's going on? Orlovsky is an idiot. We're going to talk about it. I know a lot of people are throwing that out there, but I'm going to break his entire assessment down. Stick around for it, and I'm excited for it. Trust me. Yeah. Red Ryan, what's going on, man? Appreciate you. Jason, yes, Ty did have his pro day. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. I heard he threw a 70-yard pass from his knees. Hey, you know what? That should be worth the number 1 overall pick. I'm joking. Raider Ryan, what's going on? Appreciate you rocking up in here. Raider Paul, in the business. What's going on? I'll hit you with that, Raiders, man. Appreciate you rocking with us. Ryu Ken, what is happening? I'm in favor of moving back for a random reason, for a ransom, and drafting Ty instead. We'll definitely tap into it. I appreciate you. Alon in the building. What's going on, man? Appreciate you rocking with me. Okay. Severe, before you get out of here, man, your thoughts on Ty Simpson. Okay. Obviously you have Dan Orlovsky. He kind of broke down just kind of his feeling about it, but just overall, I think you and I can both agree that Ty Simpson is not a number 1 overall pick. That's not even close. But 1, how do you like him as a prospect? 2, where do you think he should go? And where do you think he will go?
In this draft class, he'll probably, depending on the Jets. If the Jets don't take him, there's 2 teams I can see doing it. I can see the Jets doing it in the teens, and I can see the Rams doing it as a guy to sit behind Stafford. That's like the earliest I can see him going. I don't think the Jets will do it any earlier than that. And I could also see him falling back down to like the late 20s and a team trading back into the first round to get him. I think that might be the more likely scenario right now. Is that's what happens? Is that maybe the Cardinals they trade back into the first round to grab him. But I mean, I think in most drafts he's probably a late first, early second round pick. But I think the lack of quarterback talent in this draft and the lack of high end talent at other positions, I think that's going to push him up into the first round, just like it's pushing Fernando Mendoza up to number 1 overall. And I think that if you look at Ty Simpson, I know a lot of people. Well, he struggled down the stretch, and he had the gastritis, so that was a contributing factor. I also think he had another injury. I think it was maybe a back or something like that he was dealing with.
He had a back, but he also had an ankle injury at some point.
Okay. So at one point in time, Ty Simpson was consensus number 1 overall pick, number 1 QB on most people's boards. He was going to be presumably the number 1 pick, being the number 1 quarterback. So at that time, he was the guy. And I think that what's dropped him so far is obviously he struggled a little bit down the stretch. And then the last performance they saw was, his offense, especially the offensive line, just being completely overwhelmed by an Indiana team that's much better than people want to give them credit for. But people don't want to give the supporting cast of Indiana any credit, because then they feel that takes credit away from Mendoza, which it does. But because I'd say all the time, Indiana lost 2 games last year. Know who they lost to? They lost to Notre Dame and Ohio State. Know who was in the national championship that year? Notre Dame and Ohio State. So, and that's with Curtis Work not being at 100%. So, but go back to Ty Simpson. A lot of the things he's doing already. First of all, Ty Simpson, he's been in college for a little while. He's been a team player. He sat down. He could have hit the transfer portal. He stayed loyal. A lot of people in Ty Simpson's position would have left Alabama. They would have darted, and they would have went somewhere where they could start and put up meaningless numbers, but it probably would have mean maybe they go to a lesser program, or, they have to start all over again. Ty Simpson stayed loyal behind Bryce Young, behind Jalen Monroe, and he waited his turn. And when he got his turn, he got a new coach with a new system, and he only got 15 games essentially to prove himself. And under those circumstances, he put up a great season. Statistically, it was a better season than Mendoza, really. And you think about the things he had to deal with, essentially no running game. I think they averaged like 80 yards a game on the ground or something like that. He had receivers that were dropping the ball left and right. The defense was terrible. So you knew every game, if Ty Simpson didn't play well, Alabama wasn't going to win. Like, it was Ty Simpson or bust. And for a large part of the year, he held it down. And maybe there were some extenuating circumstances, like him being hurt or the gastritis or whatever that causes play to taper off towards the end of the year. Evaluators have to take that into account, but I think they also have to take into account that he played in a much more pro-style system where he was basically being wholly dependent on to carry an entire offense, and he was doing stuff like making checks at the line, doing motions to check coverages. Like, he was doing all of these things in real time in the SEC. So, I mean, I think he should get some credit for that as well.
No, I agree. And the one thing I would ask, right, and I've actually been thinking about this over the last, I want to say, week or so, and because a lot of times when we go live, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of it, because then that'll just turn into a 2-hour live. But we have other things to talk about at times. But the one question I would ask, based on what you see on Ty Simpson's game film and just the way that he was able to kind of navigate that offense with the lesser weapons that he had overall, but then you see what Fernando Mendoza was asked to do in Indiana. Imagine if Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza flopped spots. Yeah. Imagine Fernando Mendoza over with Alabama. I would bet money Alabama is a 6-win team, to be dead honest. Like, that's how I look at it. If you look at what Fernando Mendoza looked like outside of the RPOs, the back shoulder fades, and the go balls, it's not great. His accuracy is about 50-50. I mean, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's good. But you look at Ty Simpson, and if you put Ty Simpson in Indiana, they're probably back to the national championship, in my opinion. And so I think that's where it's tough to kind of make the evaluation, and it just presents a lot of question marks. It's not saying that Fernando Mendoza can't do it, because I don't think he was asked to do a lot, but it just presents the question marks. And one thing that I was going to present to the chat was, and this is, I'm going to go through a bunch of bullet points, and I'm going to ask the chat, is that a reasonable question mark? And the thing is, how many question marks are acceptable, or how many question marks are you okay with getting a guy at the number 1 overall draft pick? And again, when I say question marks, it's not that I'm saying he can't do it. It's just the tape doesn't tell you, or the body of work doesn't tell you, that that's in his game and it's going to transfer well to the NFL, unfortunately. We'll get to a couple comments, man. I appreciate you rocking. Jason, I think you're saying this too, what Severe said about it's not statistically better. I would say in some statistics, yes, right? Fernando had 41 touchdowns, better than Ty, right? Better completion percentage. But the completion percentage was very elementary, a very elementary route tree, back shoulder fades, RPO, stuff like that. But he did have more interceptions. But then you look at what Ty Simpson was asked to do, I think the body of work is much better as it relates to how it transfers to the NFL. Severe, what's your thoughts?
I think Ty threw for more yards too. You look at the sack rate. Fernando Mendoza had a higher sack rate. So you know, Ty threw for what? Was it 38? I think Ty threw for 38 touchdowns, I believe. I think it was 38 touchdowns for Ty in how many lesser games? In 2 less games. So I mean, if you look at average per game, he would have had better stats outside of completion percentage.
Yeah, and one stat that a lot of people, as much as, yes, I'm not going to discredit touchdowns or anything like that, but one stat to keep in mind is the fact that Ty Simpson, with less talent around him, a horrible offensive line, one of the worst run games, he threw the ball almost 100 more times than Fernando Mendoza and had 1 less interception. And so as much as he could do a better job, and Ty Simpson is not a perfect prospect. Trust me, I'm going to go through just kind of the cons that I have with him. But, you know, Ty Simpson, he's got to be able to hold on to the football a little bit more when he takes off and runs. But he threw the ball almost 100 times more in a more demanding situation of Ty, and threw 1 less interception. And so, to me, I feel like that's a very impressive stat if you just want to take apples to apples and compare the two.
I was wrong. It was only 28 touchdowns. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
I thought it was 38, so it's only 28. So yeah. So now Mendoza had 41, you said?
Yeah, 41 touchdowns.
Okay.
But Fernando Mendoza had 3,500 yards passing, and Ty Simpson had 3,500 yards passing. Now,
this is the argument I hate. If stars mattered, Fernando Mendoza was a 3-star recruit. So that means he's not that good, right? So Mendoza is not that good because he's only a 3-star recruit. So since stars are the end-all be-all when it comes to guys and what they are and what they should be and how they perform, Mendoza's only 3 stars. So why are we wasting our time on him? Like, let's not draft him then, because he's only a 3-star quarterback. Like that argument, it holds absolutely no weight.
And I 100% agree. I mean, given the fact that even though they came in as higher stars, or however you want to call it, that doesn't mean that they performed that way as the season went on. And you got to remember, Ty Simpson was throwing to a redshirt freshman, and then he had what was his name, Bernard, I believe it is, which
Bernard,
he might go second round, possibly.
I don't think he should. I mean, if you go second round,
I don't know exactly where he'd go, but he's definitely not highly touted as a top receiver in this draft.
People say like second, third round, but like I said, I wouldn't take him higher. Farrell was talking about it. I wouldn't take him higher than the 4th, to be honest with you. But that's just my opinion. And then Ryan Williams, who was as a freshman on par with Jeremiah Smith in a lot of people's eyes, and then he completely fell off a cliff. I think he had like a 9 or 10% drop rate this season. So we look at the completion percentage. You know, I think Ty Simpson was making more difficult throws, and then he also had receivers that dropped the ball pretty consistently. So, I mean, I think that affects his completion percentage as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Williams, there's plenty of opportunities that they could have moved the chains. They could have switched up the field position, but Ryan Williams, he just dropped the ball. I believe he had the second most drops in college football this year. And out of those drops, I believe there was 8 that were more than 15 yards plus. That just went right through his hands. And so obviously those are momentum killers. They don't move the chains. They don't get you into additional field position, that's tough. That's tough to deal with, especially given the fact, like you're saying, Severe, Ty Simpson, there was so much more on his shoulders throughout the entire season than Fernando Mendoza. And there's a bunch of stats that I'm going to kind of throw out there. And again, I'm not a massive stat guy, but if the stats also support the facts on the game, just as it relates to the game film, then you have to take it into consideration. Ryu, you said it's funny how everyone's going crazy because Dan had Ty over Mendoza. A lot of people said that months ago.
Exactly. Months ago, like Mendoza was an afterthought. So Mendoza he had a great run through the. I mean, it was like I said, it's a perfect storm. He had a great run through the college football playoffs. Obviously, Ty Simpson struggled toward the end of the year, and there's not a lot of blue chip talent in this year to be in this path for being the number 1 overall pick. So he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, either by us or by somebody else. And I doubt if there's anybody that's going to give what it takes in terms of compensation to move up to take number 1 overall from us. So we're likely going to be drafting Fernando Mendoza, unfortunately, or depending on if you like him, unfortunately.
And I've said this before. If I were to put money on it, we're picking Fernando Mendoza. So I understand that, but it doesn't mean that I agree with it. Linda, you're saying do you both pick Ty at number 1? No. Severe, same thing. No, Ty is not
no. I wouldn't take
point blank period. I'm just on the boat, and I think Severe just kind of said it. Like, we just don't think there's a quarterback worth the number 1 overall pick in this draft period.
Exactly.
My opinion is saying we need to trade up and get Caden McDonald. We'll talk about that in another live, man. Appreciate you rocking. John Fallon, what's going on, man? Just Raiders, baby. Accuracy was over 70% on Mendoza. We could talk about that accuracy before I jump into it. Severe, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mendoza, he had a high rate of accuracy. But like I said, he wasn't asked to throw the ball a lot. He also had the advantage of, doing a lot of RPO stuff. So a lot of his throws were stuff where it was concepts he was very comfortable with throwing to receivers that were open a lot of times. And a lot of times he had receivers that bailed him out and made great catches also. Which every quarterback does. So I want to hold that against him. But, every quarterback has that to some degree.
And so, Jay, just so you understand, yes, he was actually more in the 70s. I believe Fernando Mendoza ended the season off with almost like 70% completion rating. I think he's actually above 70%. And the one thing that you have to take into consideration is, one, just how often he ran RPOs, how often he ran just kind of those comeback back shoulder fades. Even though it's a very hard route to throw, you combine that with the amount of RPOs. But the reason why the RPOs were always open for Fernando Mendoza 90% of the time was because they had the 4th best run game in college football. When you have the 4th best run game in college football, you are going to force defenses. And go look at the schools that he played. I'm kind of going to the bullet points, but they had the 60th strength of schedule last year in college football, which means they did not play a lot of good defenses. And when you have the 4th best run game in college football, that means you're going to face a lot of man defense. They faced an upwards of 90% man defense, and they did not play a lot of good defenses. Go look at the Penn State game. A lot of people talk about the Penn State game. Well, guess what? Penn State had, I think, the 40th ranked defense around there, close to it. When you have the 4th best run game in college football, you're going to force teams to go man-to-man defense, and rarely are you going to go against good enough defenses that are going to be able to combat the receivers that he had man-to-man. And so that just helps you increase your completion rating. And I'm not going to take anything away given the fact that Fernando Mendoza was extremely good in the RPO. He was extremely good when he could set his feet, clean pocket, and he read it right. It was clean. It was on time. The velocity was good. The ball placement was good. So I'm not going to take anything away from it. But at the end of the day, when you have the number 4 rushing game in college football, that helps with the RPO, which helps with your accuracy. Severe, you got anything on that?
Nah, I completely agree. But I'm gonna leave the rest of the chat to you, man. I'll get up out of here. You guys have a good show. I know I'm gonna be watching, man. I want to see these bullet points, man. So I'm gonna be tapping in.
It's gonna be interesting, man. I appreciate you, man. Hey, have fun, hey, and stay out the heat if it's hot over there.
For sure, man. You guys have a good one.
All right, man. All right, man. Hey, now it's just me and you, chat. Now it's just me and you. We're gonna figure this thing out. I'm gonna get to some of the comments, man. I appreciate it. So another one, Jeff saying Ty can't throw a sideline ball. I don't know what you mean by that. Whether you're thinking like a go ball on the sideline, back shoulder fade, maybe it's a corner route. I don't know what you mean by that, but stay tuned. Probably, I believe next week we're going to break down Ty Simpson's game film, and I'm going to show you plenty of examples of him throwing to the sideline and being very accurate with it. And again, it's not just a go ball or a back shoulder fade. It's a lot of different route concepts, flood routes. I'm going to show you plenty of examples of him being able to do that. So definitely stick around. TK, you said my understanding, Dan and Ty have the same representation, so I feel like he's looking out for Ty in the sense as well. So I'm going to go through and break down what Dan Orlovsky said in one of the clips that dropped. I believe it was yesterday or maybe the day before. And I could agree to that if what he's saying isn't true. What Dan is saying, about 90% of it is absolutely true of Ty Simpson as well as Fernando Mendoza. And again, I'm going to back it up with – I don't want to say I'm going to back it up with what I say, but I'm going to back it up with game film. And TK, you rock with me enough. You know that I will break down that game film. And I'm going to show plenty of examples because it's not just about one or two examples. It's about the body of work. And I'll show you the body of work. Tribe, you're saying, are people listening to Dan Orlovsky? I don't think he's ever said anything I agree with. One thing I will tell you guys ever since being on this YouTube thing is my evaluation does not go off of what people say. I don't even take what I think based on what the analysts say, because a lot of times they're wrong. A lot of times I was right and I had a completely different take. Again, I had Shedeur Sanders as a 3rd round grade last year and I got a bunch of crap for it. All right. And so and 98% of all the analysts said Shedeur might be going to the Raiders, or Shedeur is going to go in the 1st round. He's a 1st round talent. I had a 3rd round grade on him, and he ends up going in the 5th. So I really don't take what these guys say. It's just a coincidence at this point that me and Dan Orlovsky basically have the same take. But I said this take weeks ago. My take on Fernando Mendoza, I had the week after the national championship because I was finally able to kind of dive into his game film and kind of understand what he was, and just I had my take. And so I had my take a week after the national championship, well before everybody else was kind of coming out with it. So, but then what I do is I also go back and I watch what these ex-NFL quarterbacks have to say because I respect their opinion. I do. But I also take what they say into consideration. How does that match up with the game film? How are they processing it based on the way that I look at it? And then I kind of go from there. So that's just kind of how I evaluate it. Jason, 100 more attempts, 30 more yards, 28 touchdowns. Now, remember, yes, 100 more attempts, only 30 more yards, but keep in mind, go look at the drops. If you go look at the drops that he had in college football, you could probably add, I'd want to say, I don't know, maybe a few hundred more yards onto that total with the amount of drops that Ty Simpson had. Again, they had the 2nd most drops in college football, where Fernando Mendoza, how many times did he have drops? Just clear cut in your hands drops, not very many. So I know it's not the biggest movement of the needle, and I'm not saying that, but you could take the 100 more attempts and only 30 more yards, but you better take into consideration that he also had the 2nd most drops in college football by his receivers. So just take that into consideration. And only 28 touchdowns, I get that, but he also the Alabama defense I think was ranked 20th. One bullet point that I also have when it comes to Fernando Mendoza in that Indiana offense, the Indiana offense had the 6th best starting field position in 2025. All right. Where Alabama had some of the worst starting field position because that defense wasn't very good. And you also take into consideration they had one of the worst run games. And so that defense could play on their heels and sit back and defend the pass all day, every day. So just take all that into consideration. All right, let's see. I'm going to get into the list. I definitely want to respect the chat, get some of the comments in, because trust me, hey, get back at me. All right. Sometimes I take a little bit longer in my answers because I do my homework, and I want you guys like Jason. I appreciate the back and forth to Jason. I do respect Jason's opinion. I respect a lot of people's opinion, but I also know that Jason does his research and he also looks at it. I think he's coached football as well, and so I respect it, and I enjoy the back and forth. And trust me, Jason, we definitely got to link up, get together, because some of the people that are higher on Mendoza, I definitely want to get your take and kind of get that back and forth, because I'm going to bring up some points here very soon, and we're gonna kind of get after it. Let's see. Jay, you're saying Ty's health is a big concern. It is. He only has 15 starts. That is a concern for me. I'd love to see. I know the statistics say that the kind of that criteria is around 25 starts, and I agree with that. All right, one of the reasons why I was extremely high on Bo Nix, again, got a lot of shit for it. I basically had Caleb Williams, then I had Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, basically 2A, 2B. Those are my three top quarterbacks, with Caleb Williams being the top quarterback. But I had Bo Nix right behind, right with Jaden Daniels. And one of the reasons, not the only, but one of the reasons was because Bo Nix, I mean, he started damn near like 4 seasons in a row. The amount of experience that he had was one of the reasons why I was high on him for many, and there was many more reasons. But with Ty Simpson and him only being 6'1", a little bit undersized, he only has 15 starts and he's already getting banged up a little bit. I'm with you. The health can be a little bit of concern, but even though I do like Ty Simpson, and I think Ty Simpson is the better prospect as it relates to quarterback and how it transfers and what he did and was required to do in 2025 and how that translates to the NFL, I put him as the number 1 quarterback. That doesn't mean take him at number 1. I have a 2nd round grade on Ty Simpson. Let's see. Dundee Simpson had nothing but 4 and 5 stars around him. Okay, there were 4 and 5 stars, but they didn't play like 4 and 5 stars. They didn't play like 4 and 5 stars. Just because you come in as a 4 and 5 star doesn't mean that that's how you play as you get into college. Just keep that in mind. Again, my guy Severe just talked about it, and I think he maybe addressed it. My bad. I'm a little bit behind the chat, so maybe he addressed it. That's on me. Jeff, so the short of all this, the QBs are not far off from each other, so basically they both should be late to early 2nd picks, not the number 1 overall. Yeah, I have Ty Simpson as an early 2nd round pick, and I have Fernando Mendoza more as a late 2nd. I could even see him again. This is just my evaluation. I could see him as a late 2nd. If there was kind of a normal draft, if there was better prospects overall in this draft, I could see him fall to the 3rd, depending on just how many quarterback needy teams there are. That's the one thing. That's the only reason why I gave Shedeur Sanders even a 3rd round grade last year, was because there was a lot of quarterback needy teams. So I thought someone was going to pull the trigger at least in the 3rd, but I think him going to the 4th was a little bit of trickiness of the NFL and stuff like that. But I did not see a scenario based on what I saw with Shedeur Sanders' game film, him going in the 1st or the 2nd at a 3rd round grade. And I would have pulled the trigger on him in the 4th, but obviously we didn't. Jeff, you're saying the size profile is a big deal. Mendoza is 6'5", a lot tougher than Simpson. I wouldn't say he's a lot tougher than Simpson. Simpson took a beating because he had one of the worst offensive lines in college football. He took a beating. Yes, Simpson, Fernando Mendoza is tough. Yes, he's 6'5". A lot of people say, well, he's 6'5", so he's the better prospect. Okay, height is only a number. You got to put it on tape. You got to put it on film, and we'll do a deeper dive on it in a second. But again, I'm not questioning Fernando Mendoza's toughness, but don't question Ty Simpson's toughness. He battled through quite a bit of injuries. If the gastritis thing was real and he had an intestinal issue and he battled through it and he played through it, that tells me, because his playing weight was 225 and he went into the Rose Bowl at, I believe, 190 pounds. He lost damn near 30 pounds in a matter of a few weeks because of what was going on. That tells me he's going to go out there and he's going to ball and he's going to be tough. So I'm not saying he's tougher than Fernando Mendoza, but I don't know how you can say Fernando Mendoza is tougher than Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson is plenty tough to play in the NFL. But can his body withstand it? to Jay's comment, can his body withstand it given the fact he is of a smaller stature? Where's the flag? Where's the first Indiana O-lineman going in this draft? So I don't know. I know a lot of the linemen are returning, and look, one of the things, and it's one of my bullet points, it's one of the things that you have to take into consideration when you talk about Fernando Mendoza and what aided in his success. All right. One of the big things that you got to take into consideration is that Indiana O-line was a finalist for the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football. They're one of the finalists for the best O-line in college football. Again, the fourth best run game in college football. Fernando Mendoza was taking snaps and was behind an offensive line that was one of the best in college football. Now, a lot of those offensive line are going back. They're going back to college football. So he had one of the best offensive lines in college football. You have to take that into consideration. And that's why that's why you don't hear a lot of their names, is because they're going back to college. Alex, what's going on? Jason, in a regular draft, we're more absolute talent. Yes, Mendoza would be a 25 to 40 pick, not as much elite talent in this draft. I agree. There's not a whole lot, and I think the buzz is kind of because of the fact that we need one. We need one. A lot of people just kind of put Mendoza as that overall consensus number one, and they're taking it. They're running with it. You're comparing Bama receivers to Illinois receivers. I don't know why you're laughing at that. Bama receivers weren't great. Just because they're a 3 or 4 or 5-star coming out of high school doesn't mean they perform that way. So they weren't great. And I would say that one of the reasons why the Indiana receivers aren't being drafted high was because they know that they ran an elementary route tree. Elijah Surratt, yes, they questioned his 40 time, but he was the recipient of a portion of those 41 touchdowns. Right, he was a recipient of some of the, I guess you would say, better offensive play in college football. But these GMs and these scouts and these guys that are evaluating, they also know they ran nothing but heavy RPO. Well, guess what? We're going to run RPO maybe 10 to 12% of the time. So it was a very elementary route tree that they ran. I think Omar Cooper, the reason why he is being drafted a little bit higher or considered to be drafted a little bit higher, because he has the speed behind him. He has a little more versatility, right? But Elijah Surratt, he's dropping because they know that Alabama offense and the routes that they ran were very elementary. Now, they were very good at it. But you got to go back and you have to look at the body of work and how does that translate to what these offensive coordinators want to run. They're going to have to run more routes than just a back shoulder fade or an RPO. And so I think that's why Elijah Surratt is dropping a little bit, and they're not considered as top receivers in this draft. And neither are Alabama's. All right, let's see what's going on, man. TK, appreciate you, big dog. Appreciate you becoming a member. Let's see. Derek, what's going on, man? Why is that Mendoza's fault? Mendoza would have just run it if the receivers aren't making plays. You're absolutely right. It's not Mendoza's fault. That's why it just raises questions. And I'm going to get into it in just a second. We're going to break down Dan Orlovsky's take on it, as well as Mal Kiper's and Tim Hasselback's. But a lot of it isn't Mendoza's fault. But it just creates the question marks. That's what it does. And you're right. If Mendoza doesn't have his first or check down, he runs, and that's a fault of his. That's one of my questions with him. You're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. You have to have a fulfilled read. You got to go through your first, second, all the way to your fourth progression, damn near 60% of the time. But Fernando Mendoza doesn't do it. Now, again, was he required to do it, or was he asked to do it? No. So it presents the question, can he do it at an elite level when he didn't do it at Indiana? And you can make that claim. Is it his fault? No, but again, it still presents the question. So you're going into that number one overall pick with that question. Can he truly at an elite level or successfully at a high percentage go through a fulfilled read and understand what he's seeing and actually be able to break down a defense? We don't know that. It's a big question mark. Where's the flag? Bernard is from Henderson. Oh shit, are you saying from the Vegas area? Shit, that's cool as hell, man. So Ty struggled once there was some film on him. Bueno. So Ty struggled once there was some film on him. I don't know what that means because there's a bunch of film on him when he struggled as well as when he did extremely well. So do me a favor, just clarify that. Let's see. I just want to kind of make sure I kind of get to. All right, Derek, saying I don't think there is a player that's worth the number 1 overall pick this year. Okay, and I agree. Jason, appreciate you throwing a super chat out there, big dog. You're saying I really do. We agree. We picked a bad year to suck for number 1, but I see more in Mendoza than just tape. Okay, there is a lot more, and I'm going to get to those pros with Mendoza. All right, sometimes you don't just consider the tape. But again, it's all taken into consideration. Is he worth a number 1 overall? But I said this after I kind of did my deep dive on Fernando Mendoza. And I said, it's fitting as a Raider fan that we get the number 1 overall pick in probably one of the worst draft classes overall that we've seen in a very long time. And in my opinion, the worst quarterback draft class we have seen in the recent years. Kobe, what's going on, man? But hey, oh man, hey, look, Jason, I'm gonna give that Raiders, man. I'm getting so hopped up on the back and forth with Fernando Mendoza talk. I forgot to hit that button, man. I appreciate you. Cobain, what's going on, man? Mendoza, if he sucks, draft another quarterback until you find the guy. Bears missed on Trubisky and Fields before Caleb. Titans got Levis before they got Ward. Bengals were garbage when they took Joe. In some cases, I do agree. I mean, look, the rookie pay scale has kind of helped with being able to easily move on from a quarterback if it's a miss. You know, shout out to the 49ers. They did a very good job of understanding who Trey Lance was, and they traded up and gave up a haul to go get Trey Lance, and they did a very good job of just kind of moving off of Trey Lance, even though they gave up that draft capital. And because of the rookie pay scale, I think it makes it easier to kind of move off of first round picks. But the number one, honestly, will make or break you as a GM. If you don't hit the number 1 overall pick, man, you may never see a GM job again. You know, so we'll see just kind of how it works. Donnie, what's going on, man? What's your opinion on Mendoza's Cal tape versus his IU tape? I'm going to give you this real quick. I think Cal forced Fernando Mendoza to do more things as a quarterback. I think if Fernando Mendoza stayed at Cal, he would have developed more of a overall quarterback as it relates to the things that you need to do at the second level. I saw more tape of Fernando Mendoza at Cal, and I saw about 4 games, 4, maybe 5. I think it was 4 games. I saw more out of Fernando Mendoza as a full complete quarterback at Cal, hitting those inside dig routes, hitting those seam routes. Now, I also think that it was very, very clear that he needed another year because as much as you saw him do it, it wasn't consistent enough to say he's good at it, right? But you saw it. You saw glimpses of it, but I think Cal could have been able to prepare him better and develop him as a complete quarterback, where he goes to Indiana and he's just an RPO guy. He's a back shoulder guy. He can rely on the run, and I'm going to give you statistics on just how heavy run they went in every single game. And because they were so good at the run, the 4th best run game in college football, it allowed him to read defenses easier pre-snap. It was just man 90% of the time, and he knew that RPO was going to be good. And so it didn't allow him to develop like a quarterback should in the areas of how it translates to the NFL. So I do think him going to Indiana in some cases hurt him in his development as a true well-rounded quarterback. But I think he had flashes. I think he had more throws that translated well to the NFL, but it was just flashes. But I also think it was very clear based on that Cal tape that he needed another year and he needed to go back to college and really sharpen that box. So I watched both. I've watched now probably every Indiana game probably 4 times over now of Fernando Mendoza. And I went back and I watched at least twice of every Cal tape that I had access to. Again, it was just on YouTube. So That's basically all I have access to. Jeff, but not number one pick worthy is the point. He's not worth the number one pick overall. I'm sorry. I mean, I agree with you, man. Derek, out of 120 teams, 40 is good. I think, what are you talking about? You're talking about Penn State's defense? I think that's kind of what I threw out there. I mean, it's good, but it's not great. You go back and you look, if that's what you're referencing to, I think that's what I talked about. I mean, it's good, but it's not great. So, let's see, where's the flag? The number one pick is always a crapshoot unless you're getting like Orlando Pace or something. It is, but you have to go in it and you have to be able to check as many boxes as possible. That's the thing. You want to minimize the times that let's say my concern is that Fernando Mendoza does not have good pocket presence. I think he struggles with his pocket presence. And I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a pocket quarterback. I think that's what he's going to be. He's athletic, but he's not athletic enough to be this running quarterback that's going to scramble everywhere. So I think he's going to be a pocket quarterback. But I have concerns whether or not he's going to have good pocket presence. I don't think his instincts in the pocket is very good. And when your instincts in the pocket isn't very good at the college level, go up to the NFL level where the speed is four times the speed. So if your pocket presence and your instincts in the pocket isn't as good, now mind you, he does a very good job of just escaping and running, but I want a quarterback that can use his legs, not a runner that can throw. And Fernando Mendoza too many times drops his eyes and just looks to throw after his first read to check down is gone. And so, but I think when he went against good defenses, when he went against defenses that did a good job of bringing the pressure, I think his pocket presence wasn't very good. And if that's my thought right now, and we draft him, and all of a sudden he gets in the NFL and 3 years down the road, his pocket presence isn't very good, then I'm like, oh shit, I knew it. All right. I want to be able to check as many boxes as possible and minimize the question marks. Because I'll give you an example, Ty Simpson, right? Ty Simpson does a very good job of working under center, right? And he does a very good job of executing play action under center and still being able to hit every throw on the field. And so if I go into it, even knowing that there is still a very big learning curve for any quarterback going to the NFL, but at least if he goes into the NFL and struggles with it, I can go back to the game film and say, look, he was able to do it at a pretty high level in college. So at least there was an indication that he could have done it. He's just now struggling. He's just not transferring well to the NFL, if that ends up being the case. But if it's a question mark going into the NFL and then he struggles with it in the NFL, I got to sit back and go, damn, I should have trusted the game film. I should have trusted my eyes. I should have trusted that I'm not sure if it translates to the NFL because it's a big question mark. So you have to minimize the question mark. So where's the flag? Yes, every pick is a crapshoot because people need to understand that the transfer from college to the NFL is massive for every single prospect. The learning curve is massive for every single prospect. Now, there's levels to it. Again, like Genty, right? Genty comes from the Mountain West. That's a massive jump from a running back that maybe played at Alabama or played at, in the Big Ten, right? That's a little bit shorter of a learning curve, but it's still a big learning curve. But Genty comes from the Mountain West. It's a massive learning curve because the NFL talent or NFL level talent that you're going against in the Mountain West is nothing. It's nothing. So the way that he's going to have to adapt to the speed is much greater than someone coming from some of the bigger schools. Dundee, don't forget his red zone percentage. I won't. He was very good in the red zone. I'm not going to take that away from him. There's a lot to like about Fernando Mendoza, but there's question marks, and I'm going to get into it. Jay, but they also played Iowa, Oregon twice, Ohio State. Yeah, and guess what? Fernando Mendoza was not great against Iowa. Go back and look. Fernando Mendoza against Iowa, he had probably 3 good throws, but he had about 8 really bad throws, either inaccurate throws, bad reads. He had a really bad interception that game. He took some really bad sacks. And the game winner, the walk-off throw was a quick slant in man coverage that it was a 40-yard slant route. So you can say Iowa, but Iowa actually wasn't a very great game for him at all. Oregon, Played Oregon twice. We'll get into the Oregon game. The Ohio State game. I'll break that down too. And so wasn't great for him. All right, he had flashes. Mendoza has great moments, but he doesn't have great body of work. That's the problem that I have with Mendoza. Mendoza has great moments. You can point to moments like he's great, but the body of work as it relates to what transfers to the NFL, it's not great. It's good at times, but it's not great. But we're gonna break down his game film. Don't worry. Genty can get us a good top run game. No, an offensive line can get us a good top run game. If Genty could get us a good top run game, then he would have got it this year. But then your next response to that is, oh, but the offensive line. Exactly. So if we get a better offensive line, we'll get a better run game. It's the same thing I was claiming before we drafted Genty. Was Genty will not fix the run game. And I proved that to you guys last year because we had the worst run game in the National Football League. So Genty won't fix it. The O-line will fix it. You guys got to get that clearing in your mind. Genty will not fix it. The O-line will fix it. The running game starts with the offensive line. What up, Loon? What's going on, brother? Appreciate you. What up, Money Chuck? I see you in the building. If what Orlovsky is saying is so true, then why does the majority think otherwise? Because the majority, they are a bunch of talking points. It's a soundboard, or sorry, I'm thinking about the term. It's an echo chamber. All right. A lot of people are afraid to be wrong. That's the problem. And a lot of people go off of analytics. They don't break down the actual game film. They don't break down the tape. The amount of times that I hear analysts that are on TV that are getting paid to give their take, they refer to the analytics. That's what they go off of 95% of the time. So that's why after the draft is done, and as the years go on, a lot of these analysts, they're absolutely wrong. Why did everybody get Shedeur Sanders wrong? Right? Why did everybody kind of get Bo Nix wrong? It's because it's an echo chamber. There's people that are afraid to be wrong because the problem is that if you are part of the 95% and you're wrong, then you all can go back to the tape and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that I see that now. But all 95% of you are saying the same thing, so no one's held accountable. But if you're that 1% that says something and you're wrong, everybody can now point to you and be like, oh, see, I told you so, and everybody can band together. There's people that are afraid to be wrong, and that's the problem. But I've had takes where people will sit there and say, 805, you're wrong. You have no clue what the hell you're talking about, but I can point back to those takes as being on YouTube, and I will show you clear as day I was right. It's because I'm not afraid to be wrong. I trust my eyes. Through the years of experience of playing and coaching this game, I trust my eyes. And ultimately, I'd say 90% of the time, I'm right, and I'm right in the bigger decisions. And I will point to the history, and you guys can ask me. You can point to the history. But I think that's because, again, it's an echo chamber, unfortunately. Let's see. Derek Carter, Mendoza rises to the occasion versus Simpson, kind of shrinks. Okay, so the first 8 to 9 games, Ty Simpson was the most consistent, and he was an extremely good quarterback. All right, and he was the most important factor to his offense. Mendoza, you're right. He rises to the occasion. I'm not taking that away from him. He does a very good job in those clutch moments, right? But again, you can point to moments, not the body of work with Fernando Mendoza, unfortunately. Jay, let's see. This is the first time I hear about you on Ty, but we all know how you feel about Fernando. Yes, we're gonna get into the clips. All right, I got you. I want to say what's up, man. I appreciate everybody. Loon Simpson had almost 100 more yards and attempts, 100 more attempts than Mendoza. That accounted for only 25 plus more yards. I know Jason said that earlier, but you have to also account for the fact that Indiana had the second most drops in college football last year. So if you take away even 70% of those drops, you could probably add a few hundred more yards, and you can. I'm not saying that moves the needle or makes it so much more impressive. All right, but you also have to take into consideration in the same breath that he had the second most drops in college football. Jeff, funny thing is there are quarterbacks in this draft, not just him. So why do we have to take him at number one? Forced narrative is the devil. Let's see. Linda, sounds like Raiders teams last year. Too many excuses. I'll break down the game film. If you're talking to me, I don't know. I'll break down the game film. We'll have some fun. Whereas Flex Simpson is not good. Bama is still loaded, and they sucked. They're not loaded. One of the worst run games in college football. One of the worst offensive lines in college football. I believe it was the 20th ranked defense. So not a bad defense, but definitely not a top defense. And he didn't have a lot of weapons around him to throw the ball to. So that entire Bama team wasn't great. Ty Simpson was the reason why that Bama team had the success they had the first 8-9 games throughout the season. All right, let's see what's going on. Let's see. Marcus, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you rocking with us. Here we go. Appreciate the super chat. Eric, appreciate you. Does Love get picked before my Giants at 5? I don't think I don't hold this to me. I don't know. I don't think he does. I don't know if Love will get picked before 5. If I was a betting man, I think he'd probably slip just past 5 a little bit. But if you're a Giants fan, you like him, man, go after it. I'm not big on picking a running back before pick 15, and I have a lot of reasons why. That's why I wasn't a big fan of the Genty, but it's all right. But man, shout out to you, big dog. Okay, we're gonna get into the clips. I just want to see if there's anything else, man. Again, I appreciate the back and forth, but I'm just we're going to go into the bullet points of Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza. Frank Skinner, what's going on, brother? Appreciate you rocking with me. Let's see. Derek Carter tells me he lost a lot of weight, is going to be sick going forward. Look, and shout out to Jay. He said, some of the health concerns. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, there are concerns. Ty Simpson is not a perfect prospect. I definitely have my concerns with him, and that is one of them. Got to be concerned about that. Let's see. That's right. Let's see. Where's the flag? Yeah, but who won the best O-line of the year? It was hey, shout out to you. Shout out to you. Your Iowa O-line is legit. I'm not gonna lie about that. Let's see, Cobain, you're saying Ty Simpson went to Bama. They get some of the top recruits every year, bro. Mendoza won with dudes a lot of schools didn't want. You got to take into consideration what's happened with NIL. Bama is not going to be the Bama of old. NIL is changing that for a lot of schools. And so, yes, there were 5-star recruits coming in, stuff like that. But that Bama team is not the same Bama team. It would be like saying, I'm not drafting an SEC quarterback because of what Matt Leinart did, back in early USC days, right? The NIL has switched things up. And I'm telling you, Indiana is a massive example as to what NIL is doing now. But one thing I will say is I think there's a really good chance that Tom Brady might take some consideration with Ty Simpson, because one of the biggest things that Tom Brady likes about a quarterback, and he has said this multiple times, is that quarterbacks don't run from the organization. They stay dedicated to an organization. They work their way throughout the system. They earn their right as a starter, and that's what Ty Simpson did. He earned the right to be a starter. He dedicated himself to the school of Alabama, knowing that he's going to go in with not all the weapons in the world. That offensive line was not very good at all, had a very bad run game, right? And he's throwing to Bernard, maybe a second-round pick, but he's also throwing to a true I think he was a redshirt freshman. He's throwing to a redshirt freshman. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like he had all the targets in the world going into it, but he stuck with Alabama. He could have even stayed one more year at Alabama, but he stuck with Alabama, and that's one thing that Tom Brady has said that he really admires with some quarterbacks. And Fernando Mendoza didn't do that. He jumped ship and went to Indiana and went to a picture-perfect situation. So, again, I'm not saying that Tom Brady likes Ty Simpson more than Fernando. I'm just saying that is one thing that Tom Brady is very high on. What up, Lecky? What's going on, man? See, Gabe. Dano's comments were egregious. They weren't. We'll break it down. Red White, what's going on, man? The quarterback position isn't the same as a lineman, receiver, or DBs. They always get drafted high because of the position. They do. I'm not gonna lie, they do without question. All right, let's see. Derek saying, no, I disagree with you. You take what the defense gives you over and over again until they make you do something different. I don't disagree with you. That's why Kurt Signetti only had hour and a half practices throughout the week, because they dialed in exactly what they were good at, and it was RPO. And I 100% agree. You take what the defense gives you. That's why it creates the question, what else can Fernando do? Because he wasn't forced to do anything else. He wasn't forced to go through progression. So I 100% agree with you. You take what the defense gives you. They were just so damn good at the most basic, simple thing that they didn't have to do anything else. So it creates that question. Lou, Mendoza, and Simpson both had 90 carries running, but Mendoza had 276 yards and 7 TDs compared to Ty Simpson, 93 yards and 2 TDs. Okay, you want to know why? It's because when you're forced to play man coverage 90% of the time against Indiana, that means the defense, the linebackers, the corners, the outside linebackers, the safeties, they turn their hips. They got the back to the quarterback. That allowed massive running lanes for Fernando Mendoza. Now, given the fact that Fernando Mendoza is 6'5", 240 pounds, whatever he is. So that definitely helps him. I'm not taking that away from him. And Ty Simpson isn't that, right? But the amount of times that Alabama could face zone schemes, well, when you're in a zone scheme, that means the linebackers, they drop to a spot and they can close on you when the quarterback starts to press the line of scrimmage. And so it doesn't open up the running lanes. And so to make that comparison, you have to take into consideration the amount of times Indiana saw man coverage and linebackers, they literally just dropped out the box. They dropped out the box, and now Fernando Mendoza had a clear running lane to take off. Again, 6'5", 240 does help him run through some tacklers, so I'm not taking that away. But his running lanes were more clear than Ty Simpson because of the defenses that Ty Simpson had to face day in, day out. And so take that into consideration when you look at that. And they also had to respect the run a lot more. So even when there was pressure, they were able to expose a run lane. And now the pass rush or that defense that's collapsing on the run bypasses him because they're trying to bring so much pressure. So, and when you bring pressure, the linebackers are now off their spot. And now it's just a clear run lane. Everybody knows when you bring pressure and the quarterback can literally just break that initial line of scrimmage, man, you're going off to the races. And again, he's taking snaps behind one of the best offensive lines in college football. So you can throw the stats out there, but you better also take into consideration the defense he was facing 90% of the time, which helps out with his ability to take off and run. Let's see. All right, let's see. Okay. All right. I just kind of want to get to appreciate everybody kind of rocking. Right, I'm a mutt. I'm Japanese. I'm German, Irish, and Scottish. So take that for what it is. My dad's like 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds. I got the size from my dad's side. My dad's side. My grandma on my dad's side is as white as they come. She's blonde hair, blue eyed. And she's like 5'10", 5'11". So let's see. No, I wouldn't be the biggest Dat Win. Shout out to Dat Win. One of the reasons why I was okay with being a linebacker growing up through youth and high school. But yes, Dat Win, I'm telling you, Dat Win was one of the reasons why I embraced the linebacker role and I loved it. Let's see. All right, do me a big favor. If you have something back at me, hit that hashtag Raiders because I'm going through a lot of comments. You guys are flying. I appreciate it. Whether you care or not, do me a favor. Double tap that screen, hit that sub button. We're going to break down the game film of Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson in the coming weeks. But do me a favor, hit that hashtag Raiders if you have a response to what I'm saying, because I definitely want to get your feedback. I want you guys to know, or I want you guys to get at me. So, okay. I think I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling down, if I miss a comment, put it back in there with the hashtag Raiders, so I do get your response. Ref, fan for life, what's going on, man? He said Ty Simpson having gastritis at 23 probably means he drinks and smokes. I don't know if that's what that means, but I can't believe that he drinks. I don't know, but shout out to you guys. Appreciate it. Definitely. Double tap screen. What up, Duncan? What's going on? Okay. let's do this. I was going to break down what Dan Orlovsky was saying, but I think what I'm going to do, and what Mel Kiper was saying, stuff like that, but I think you guys kind of get the gist as to what I'm thinking. But I'm going to break down some of the pros and cons of Fernando Mendoza. And the question is up top: is Fernando Mendoza worth the number 1 overall pick? And this is what I kind of want to get to. I know Jeff and them, you guys got your show at 7 o'clock, so I don't want to dip into that too far. But let's get into it, okay? I want to preface this with saying that, look, this by no means is saying that Fernando Mendoza is a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I just don't think he's worth the number 1 overall pick. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I'm going to get into that. Again, do me a favor, hit that hashtag Raiders if you have a comment to it. Now, in exchange, I would trade back and I would get a haul. I try to get 2 additional first-round picks. And so one thing to keep in mind, unfortunately, we're talking about a quarterback that statistically is one of the worst quarterbacks or one of the worst Heisman Trophy winners out there, right? There's things to like about Fernando Mendoza, and I'm going to get into some of his pros. But he played in a system. He played on a team that he was carried by his defense. He was carried by the run game. He had his moments, and that's what Fernando Mendoza is. He's not a good body of work guy. You can't go back and look at the body of work of what translates to the NFL and say he's a surefire number 1 overall pick. He's not. RPOs don't transfer to the NFL. Back shoulder fades don't transfer to the NFL. Go balls don't transfer to the NFL. That's about 20% of what you're going to be asked to do. So what do you do in the other 80? And that's what I assess. What he does with RPOs and go balls and back shoulder fades, it's good. All right. And how he executes it is extremely good. And he does it better than I've seen, to be dead honest with you. But what does the other 80% look like? That's what you have to kind of assess. And I'll continue to go in. And so, and unfortunately, I just don't, I think that we're just in a very unique situation. We have the number 1 overall pick. We need a quarterback. And to a lot of people, Fernando Mendoza is the number 1 overall. I don't think so. I do think Ty Simpson is the more pro ready. But we're going to get into this. Again, do me a favor. Hit that hashtag Raiders. If you got something to me. And I think I see some. Donkey saying ultimately, if Mendoza isn't worth the number 1 pick, then we won't get a haul. I'm with you, and that's my concern. That's my concern. And so, Pillings for fun. I've said this on other shows, man. I wish I had an agent. I wish I did. Like show, Ty Simpson ain't even better than Arch Manning. No way, thank you. Okay, we'll break down the game film. I haven't watched a whole lot of Arch Manning because I know he wasn't coming out in the draft, so I can't make that comparison. But I also do know that Ty Simpson is the most pro-ready based on game film in this draft, without question. What up, Rose Town? What's going on, man? Raider why? 50% run. So 30% left to account for. Are you saying that Indiana was 50% run? Because Indiana was more like 70% run. So, okay, let me kind of go back up. My bad. All right, some of the pros of Fernando, all right? And again, I take this as a pro as it relates to how it transfers to the NFL. There's no question. I think a lot of people have said that his Raider Hawaii, you're saying Raiders. Okay. Yeah, we're probably going to be a run-heavy team. And if we're going to be a run-heavy team with Ashton Genty, because you got to get the worth of a number 6 overall pick. If we're going to be a run-heavy team, then why waste the number 1 overall draft pick to a guy that doesn't know how to execute, or there's question marks how he's going to execute what Clint Kubiak wants to do. We broke down Clint Kubiak's offense. Clint Kubiak runs under center, the highest percentage in the National Football League, and Fernando Mendoza didn't do it. So it presents the question, can Fernando Mendoza do it? Ty Simpson can. So trade back, get a haul, go get a quarterback that showed he could do it in college. So that's kind of how I present that. And if we are going to run 50% of the time, I would argue maybe it's even more than that based on what Clint Kubiak likes to do. Then shit, go get Ty Simpson, run it under center, and he shows he could do it. And we'll go from there. And you get 2 additional first rounders if someone's going to give us that. But to Duncan's point, I don't know if someone's willing to give us that. That is the problem that I have. Jay, I see you real quick. Let me bring it up on the screen. You're saying Ty is not better than Mendoza. Sorry, don't agree with that at all. Okay, then you need to be able to prove your point. And I'm going to show you game film, and I'm going to break this thing down for you. But again, people can say it, but at the same time, prove it. prove the point with things that translate to the NFL. Okay, so pros. Fernando, he's got a strong arm. A lot of people, no, I don't want to say a lot. Some people question his arm. I think Fernando Mendoza, that's one thing I think that he has over Ty Simpson, is Fernando Mendoza has a very strong arm. The velocity that he has when he has a clean pocket, he has very good accuracy, very good ball placement, very good velocity on it when he has a clean pocket and he doesn't have to move off of his spot. Even on the run, I think his arm is very good. But again, the thing is, even if you have the best offensive line in the NFL, you're going to move off your spot. You got to be able to climb the pocket. You got to be able to adjust in the pocket. And when he has to do that, the accuracy does fall off pretty dramatically. And so that's one of my biggest, I'd say, concerns with him is when he's moved off of his spot. So chat, hit that hashtag Raiders. Let me know what you like about Fernando Mendoza. It's probably going to be a lot of stuff, but so again, good clean bucket. He can set his feet. He's got great accuracy, great ball placement. The velocity on it is great. He's extremely efficient in what he's asked to do in that Indiana offense. Again, roughly what he's extremely efficient at roughly translates to about 20% of what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. So presents the question, what about the other 80%? And that's what I evaluate. Jason, you're saying pre-snap recognition. So I think he's got extremely good pre-snap recognition as it relates to the RPO, because that's what he ran the most. Now, pre-snap recognition as it relates to how defensive alignments, where the pressure's coming from, I got question marks, because that's one of the cons, and we'll go to it. I want to say I could count on one hand how many times I saw him make blocking assignment adjustments pre-snap. Him walking up to the offensive line and adjusting the protection call based on what he saw, based on the pressure that's coming, based on the defensive alignment, him resetting the running back. You know, one thing as a quarterback, you got to be able to reset the running back based on where the pressure is coming from, or based on where the offensive line is leaning protection. Never really did it. So is he good pre-snap when it comes to RPO? Yes, absolutely. 100% he is. But is he good at pre-snap as it relates to understanding the coverage and what the defense wants to do? I don't know. Didn't see it. So it presents the question. Let's see. Okay. More pros. Again, guys, hit that hashtag Raiders. If you guys got hit that hashtag Raiders if you guys got a comment to what I'm saying, as well as some of his pros. He can move if he wants to. I think Fernando Mendoza is athletic enough to kind of move around the pocket, get a first down on 3rd and 3 if he needs to. He proved it in college. So I do think he can move. So I really have no question about it. Is he going to be a scrambler? I don't think so. But you can kind of run play acts with him, get him out of the pocket, and potentially kind of go get those first down with his feet. So I definitely like that out of him. Obviously, he has great starting experience, so he's got a lot of experience. It's definitely something you like in a quarterback. I'm kind of looking at the chat as well. Jason, you're saying command of the huddle and flow of drives. Yeah, I do think he's got a good command of the huddle. I think that kind of falls in line with the leadership. I want to put that he does have good leadership. You know, that was just a damn good team. You got the second best defense. The second best defense in college football. You know, I think Cignetti did a very good job of really just rallying that entire team. I am going to put leadership up there, but I think that was just a good overall team. I don't know how much leadership that team truly needed from Fernando himself, because we also saw what Tyler Shuck did with that team last year. And so, but I do think he's got a really good, I think he's got good leadership quality. So I'm definitely going to give that to him. He's tough as nails. I'll definitely give that to him. He's good in clutch moments. You know, he does a very good job of stepping up to the plate and being good in those clutch moments. And that kind of goes to what I say about him being good in moments. Again, I look at body of work, but he's good in moments. And some of those are definitely clutch moments. I think he's a very good person. He shouldn't have any off-field issues. And one of the most important things that you need as a quarterback is I think he's going to be very coachable, and I think he's going to be a good locker room guy, right? I think he's going to be a guy that everybody is going to be able to accept in the locker room. But to me, I think it remains to be seen with his personality and just kind of the quirkiness that he has. How is he going to be able to lead a locker room of men? And so, that's just a question mark that I have. I'm not going to really doubt him for it, but it's just a question mark. But I think he could be a very good locker room guy, and I think he's very coachable. So those are some of the pros that I have. So you guys agree, disagree with me? Because I'm going to get into the cons, and we're going to talk about it. Let's see. Jason, I'll go back to you. When the game is in balance, he is very trustworthy to execute no matter what offense he is running. I don't know how you can say that as like a matter of fact, right? Because at Cal, he was hit or miss. It was very clear he needed to go back for 1 year. You're saying when the game is in balance, he is very trustworthy to execute. I think at times you look at the Miami game, right? Yes, he had the run, he had the moment, right? But then Kurt Cignetti and that offensive coordinator over there didn't trust him on third and 6 to seal the game. They ran the football on 3rd and 6 late in that fourth quarter for the national championship. You get the first down, you win the game, but you allowed them they were stopped on that run. They kicked the field goal. You allowed that Indiana team to give Miami the ball back with an opportunity to drive down and score and get the 2-point conversion to win the national championship. But what they do, they relied on the run game to possibly get the first down, and they also relied on the defense to win that football game for them. So, I just don't know I don't know if I can just consider him completely trustworthy, to be honest, because yes, he has the moments, but I just don't put him on it. And that's an argument. Okay. I'm not saying you're wrong. But that's an argument to be had. Jay, Ty's accuracy is also concerned. I've seen Ty struggle to get rhythm at times. Decisions late in the season were also concerning. There was some concerns late in the season. But you also can say, if you want to compare accuracy or compare opportunity, Ty Simpson's also throwing behind a very, very bad offensive line where the pressure was in his face constantly and consistently. And he was also asked to throw on the run a lot more, where Fernando Mendoza had very clean pockets 80% of the time. And so, Ty Simpson, I think with what he had to work with, I think he was very accurate. I'll show plenty of examples of the accuracy that he had on the run, on the move, outside the pocket, even stepping up in the pocket, where Fernando Mendoza didn't do it a whole lot. Fernando Mendoza didn't climb the pocket a lot. And so, but Ty did very well. Now, I'll counter that by saying there were times where Ty just kind of had those head scratcher throws, those throws that just were off. And you don't know why he did that. It was because the pressure was there. So again, he's not a perfect prospect. There's definitely times where Ty was off, but there is a body of work that shows that Ty Simpson can be very accurate on the move, in the pocket, maneuvering. And I'll show plenty of examples when we break down the game film. The tribe, Linderbaum is going to make the line adjustments. No, Linderbaum is most likely going to make the line, the strength call. That's what the offensive line the center will typically do. He's going to make the strength call, and he will make some protection calls and adjustments. But what the quarterback is going to do is the quarterback is also going to be able to create the matchups with motion. You got to remember, the coach is no longer in his ear in the NFL after that 25-second play clock, right? And so now it's up to the quarterback to be able to create the motion, but also based on off the motion, now the defense has to adjust. And when the defense adjusts, whether it's the linebackers or the safeties, the quarterback now has to adjust the protection. That's when you see quarterbacks walk up to the line of scrimmage and talk to the offensive line, or you reset the running back. So as much as, yes, the center is going to have some responsibility with the protection, the quarterback is also going to help with the protection as it relates to where the pressure is coming from after a pre-snap motion. And the quarterback is also going to motion guys based on the defensive formation. The amount of times that you watch tight ends or receivers, or they're out wide and they motion down in tight to chip the DN or chip the linebacker. Why do they do that? Because they help with the protection. So just to say that Linderbaum's going to call the adjustment, that's false. The quarterback is also going to play a massive role in understanding what the defensive formation is and where the pressure is coming from. And you are going to also make sure that you motion or bring receivers down, bring help down, or motion to create that hot read, create that mismatch. That's what the quarterback is going to be responsible for. Jason, when teams get film on Ty Simpson, they were able to adjust and make him average Georgia. Yeah, Miami kind of did the same thing as well. Ohio State made it hard for Fernando Mendoza. Right? I mean, so you're right, right? Anybody is once guys get game film on somebody, it's going to be make it harder for them. I 100% agree with you, right? But don't think it's not going to be hard for Mendoza, right? And so how does Mendoza look when the RPOs don't work? When defense gets game film on you, how is it going to look? Go look at the second half of the Miami game. It wasn't great. He had a moment, a fourth down back shoulder fade, either on 4th and 4, 3rd and 4. And then he had the great run, the moment, the run. Go look at the other 2 throws when he had to roll out the pocket a little bit. When he had to roll out the pocket a little bit, that deep out route to Elijah Surratt, bad throw, very inaccurate. That throw right before the big run, where it was an inside slant to the back of the end zone, very inaccurate. It was behind him and too high, right? So, yeah, when you get film on quarterbacks, it's going to be tough. It'll be tough on Simpson. It's going to be tough on Mendoza as well. Let's see. Money Chuck, make plays at crucial moments. He did. I'm not going to take that away from him. All right. In crucial moments, he did make very good plays. Again, we're talking about moments. I combine that with body of work. And I'll have plenty of examples. I got to go back to my points. Some of the guys are going to go on at 7 o'clock. I don't want to dig too deep into that. My fear with Mendoza is acclimating to the speed of the game. I agree. He will be just fine learning Kubiak's system. You can't. Kubiak does things with his system that Fernando Mendoza didn't show that he could do well in. One showed that he didn't do well, but 2 also wasn't asked to do. Again, like under center, executing play action from under center, working the middle of the field. 1, he wasn't asked to do it, and 2, he didn't run under center. So you can't make the claim that he'll be just fine. Can't make that claim. Unless you show me examples of a body of work that says he can do it and he showed he can do it, then you can make the claim that he could do just fine. Money Chuck, ability to learn and work ethic, receptive to coaching. That is a big thing, but it's also a question mark, right? When people have to always go back to, well, I think he can be coached up to do it. I think he can learn it. I think he's a student of the game to do it. That opens up that window of what if he can't do it? What if all of a sudden he goes in the NFL and he struggles to do it because the body of work tells you in college he didn't do it, or he wasn't asked to do it, or he didn't do it at a good level. Then you draft him and he struggles, and now you're going to go back and go, shit, I should have trusted the film. So if you have to combat, I think he can do it. I think he can be coached up to do it. I trust that he can do it. If you have to say that too many times, then it creates too many question marks, and I don't like I don't go into a number 1 overall pick with that. Let's see. All right. Appreciate everybody going. What up, Dre? Miami is way more talented than Indiana. I think Indiana was just they were, but look, coaching plays a massive role. I think Indiana was just coached a lot better. I think they were more well coached, and you can't discredit coaching. I think coaching plays a massive role. The Tribe, who was better in the red zone? Look, Fernando Mendoza was very good in the red zone. He was. Again, I'm not going to take anything away. Let's see. Alfredo, you trust Kubiak and Spytek to make a decision? I hope so, man. Arnie, question: how, with only 15 starts in college, affect your evaluation of Ty Simpson? It does affect it. That's why I have a 2nd round grade on him. It does affect it. All right, I'm down at the bottom. Good. That's why I have a 2nd round grade. So again, I'm not just because I say Ty Simpson is, I think, a better prospect as it relates to what translates to the NFL. That doesn't mean I'm taking him at number one. I have a second round grade on it. I'm going to try. Who was better in the red zone, Ty or Fernando? I think Fernando was better. Again, one thing to keep in mind is when you don't have a good run game, which Alabama did not, and look at the strength of schedule. Indiana had the 60th strength of schedule when Alabama had the 17th strength of schedule, right? So they're going against collectively some better teams, right? But when Alabama did not have a run game, and again, I'm not saying Mendoza wasn't good in the red zone. Don't take that as such. I'm just saying if you want to say that maybe Ty wasn't as good, there could be reasons why he wasn't, given the fact that when you don't have a good run game, that allows defenses inside of very tight quarters, which is the red zone, to play zone defense, which they did quite a bit. And when you sit in zone defense, that means it makes the windows a lot tighter and a lot harder to navigate in the red zone. And so I think it was more difficult for Ty Simpson to execute in the red zone. But again, I'm not taking anything away from Fernando. He was very good in the red zone. I do think Fernando was better, but Ty just had a much harder time because his offensive line was not good at all, and his run game was one of the worst in college football, which made it a lot easier to defend in the red zone. Jason, yes, no climb in the pocket, no unbalanced pocket manipulation, drifting or fading are bad habits. See Rich Gann, early career for details. What up, Diesel? What's going on, man? Raiders, Legions, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix all ran RPO, and they're successful in the NFL. Okay, so I love it when people bring up this point. And so you don't just take into consideration when I had my evaluation of Caleb Williams, when I had my evaluation of Bo Nix, I did not just look at what Bo Nix did as it relates to RPO. I looked at what Bo Nix did outside of the RPO. How was Bo Nix's ball placement and accuracy on the run? It was elite. It was some of the best ball placement I saw out of a quarterback with Bo Nix when he played out of structure, when he was moved off of his spot, when he had to climb the pocket and still make a throw to the middle of the field. It was elite, great ball placement. So, and Bo Nix his receivers weren't great. He had Troy Franklin, I think, as his best receiver, which was not very good. And so, yes, Bo Nix ran a very spread out system. They ran a lot of screens. They ran a lot of RPOs. I don't disagree with you, but then you have to take into consideration, what did he look like and what did he do outside of that? And that's where I'm expressing to everybody, what does Fernando Mendoza look outside of that, right? Bo Nix was elite. Bo Nix was damn good outside of that RPO game. Out of structure, movement in the pocket, his ball placement, velocity, arm strength, where he could pinpoint the ball placement anywhere on the football field. It was damn good. So you can make the argument that they all were high RPO systems. I will agree with you, but then you better take into consideration what they did outside of RPO and do that the same for Fernando Mendoza. And it's not bad. It's not great. It's good. It's okay. Jay, Daniel should have hired you to make an argument because he wasn't good. I feel bad for Dan, especially when he went on Pat McAfee, man. They grilled him. No, I'm not. All my family's from the Bay Area, from the San Jose and Oakland area. I'm originally from SoCal, but I'm in the Las Vegas area. But originally from SoCal. So, okay. Let me go back into, again, I don't want to go too deep into my guys' times. I know some guys are going on. Shout out to Jay. I think you're going on 7, man, as well as Jeff. So I kind of went through the pros. I'm going to go through the cons. Chat, let me know if you have any cons on Fernando Mendoza. But I'm going to go through it, and hopefully I don't take too much time. I'm not going to get too much into the comparison of Ty Simpson. I could do that on a later live. But this is more about the question was, is Fernando Mendoza worth the number 1 overall? Okay. And so we're going to get into it. Here are some of the cons of Fernando Mendoza. All right. Number 1, ran a very simplified offensive system. It was clearly a 2-read system. A lot of RPOs, back shoulder fades, go routes. It's about 15 to 20% of what you're going to do in the NFL. So the question is, what are you going to do the other 80%? Right. And don't take my word for it. Curt Cignetti went into a press conference and said it's a 2-read system. it was very simplified. You go back and you look at his body of work, right? A lot of it was the second read was in his same line of sight. So he didn't have to go through a full field read. He didn't have to go through a progression 95% of the time. His first read was to his left or to his right, and go back. I challenge anybody, go back and watch the game film. His second read was either a running back out of the backfield to the same side of the field, which simplified the read. You got your first read to your check down in the same line of sight, or go look at how many times they would run a crosser to the first read. The amount of times they did that was more times than not. And so it made it very simple. It was simplified. First read is to my left and my right, and I got a check down right in front of it, or I got a crosser going to the same exact read. It simplified everything. Go back and look at the Iowa game. The Iowa game, they did it a lot. I challenge you to go look. It was about third quarter. It was third quarter. It was third down and 4, I believe. They ran the most Pop Warner simplified offensive design I think I've seen in a very long time. It was a condensed 3-by-1. They had trips left to the right, a single receiver in tight to the left in a closed set. They literally just ran the three receiver side. They ran basically all of them picked so that single receiver could cross underneath, and Fernando Mendoza looked his way the entire time. The ball ended up being batted down, but it was just simple. It was basic. It's a very safe offense for a quarterback. So again, go look at the body of work. That's what they like to do. He needs to improve with his pocket presence. His eyes drop way too early. He likes to drift way too much. Go back to the Ohio State game. Go back to the Iowa game when he played some of the better defenses. Go back to the Miami game. The amount of times that he just kind of starts to scramble in circles, right? His pocket presence isn't very good. And that's what I think he's going to struggle with, because I think he's going to be a pocket quarterback. And so I don't think his pocket presence is very good. He looks to run way too often because it's a quarterback. Because it's a two read system. It's the one read to check down. If it's not there, I'm taking off and running. That's not going to help you in the NFL. Real quick, sports guy, you're saying Mendoza was at Cal well before he went to Wisconsin. Crazy to think about. He was at Cal, and I did watch his Cal tape. Steve, I see you. What about the Cal tape? I said this a little bit before. I watched 4 games of him at Cal, and I think he did a really good job of just showing flashes of NFL-type throws. But unfortunately, it was very clear he had to go back. He had to go back to college, and he had to sharpen that. And so I think that if he would have stayed at Cal, he would have developed better as a quarterback as it translates to the NFL. But he went to Indiana. That was a very quarterback-safe system, and didn't develop him well as a quarterback. So that's just my take. So his accuracy drops off quite a bit when he's moved off of his spot and he's forced out of the pocket. That's one of my biggest concerns, right? He has some very good throws, but he also has some throws that are just underwhelming. They're inaccurate. And so it goes back to, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's great. It's good. It's about 50-50. So that's not good. You're going to be moved off your spot. You're going to have to climb the pocket. You're going to have to be able to throw on the run. Again, shout out to my guy Lunatic, but that's one of the things that I loved about Bo Nix. Bo Nix is ball placement, velocity on the ball, accuracy on the run, and out of structure was very good. And that's what I liked about Bo Nix. That's why I had him as kind of my 2A, 2B that draft. And so that's one of my biggest concerns of Fernando Mendoza. Also, in addition to that, what I don't like about Fernando Mendoza is when he does roll out and when he is moved off structure and out of the pocket, he doesn't have much control over his body as it relates to how he has to kind of regain his feet. He has to be able to reset his feet and drive the ball a lot sooner. There's plenty of times where he has enough distance from the defense where he can settle his feet, reset, drive the football. And a lot of times, go back and look at that Ohio State game when he took that massive shot from the edge rusher. It was play action. He rolls out. He should have been able to settle his feet and drive the ball to that inside crosser. But what did he do? He drifted with the throw, and he drifted right into that defensive end, right? The number one thing you want to do is when you execute that handoff and you go backside, you want to be able to just peek and see where that defender is. He continued with his motion, and he just threw his body right into that defender. Completed the pass. It was a good throw, but I think it was unnecessary contact. That you see that more and more as you go back and watch the film. When he gets out, there's plenty of times where you see him with plenty of distance from the nearest defender, and he's still throwing off balance. And then his accuracy drops. He's got to be able to understand. And Ty Simpson does a very good job of understanding where the pressure is. And sometimes he'll stop dead, retract back, reset his feet, bam, he'll drive that football down the middle of the field and complete the pass. Fernando Mendoza just doesn't have that feel for the defensive pressure. And he finds himself way too many times continuing to drift with the throw, which compromises his accuracy. And I'll show plenty of examples of it when I break down his game film. So again, he was not asked to go through a fulfilled read a lot, right? I could count on, I hate to keep doing the Ty Simpson comparisons, but I could maybe count one or maybe two times that he goes through a fulfilled read. Right. And sometimes it looks like he's going through a fulfilled read, but you can see the best part about when teams with helmets that have stripes on them, you can see where his head is, where his eyes are looking when the stripes, when they have stripes going down the middle of their helmet. That's one of the best things. And a lot of times where it looks like he's going through a progression, I actually think he's looking at the offensive line for an exit strategy. He's trying to take off and run. And so the question is, how good does he read the defense outside of RPO post snap? I don't know, because he wasn't asked to do it a lot. So, and he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to do it. He's going to have to navigate the pocket. He's going to have to step up into the pocket and climb the pocket with his eyes downfield and looking for the open receiver and going through that progression. But because he wasn't asked to do it and he didn't do a lot of it, it creates that question mark. And now a lot of times, even when the pressure does get there, I question whether or not he's going to be able to understand where that pressure is coming from. I kind of went over it about 20 minutes ago. He's going to have to understand where the pressure is coming from. He's going to have to make the line adjustments. He's going to have to make the protection adjustments based on where the pressure is coming from. He's going to have to create his own motion, one, to create matchups, to create a hot route if needed. He's going to have to motion guys down to get a chip on an edge rusher. If you need to create a little more time, he's going to have to do that. And he didn't do that at Indiana. Now, was it because he wasn't asked to, or is it because he doesn't know how to? I don't know. But it creates that question. And if you have that question and drafting him with the number 1 overall draft pick, and he struggles with that in the NFL and doesn't just grasp it, then you better kick yourself in the ass and go, well, shit, I should have known it, because he didn't do it a lot at Indiana. So that creates the question mark. So guys, let me know. Those are definitely some of the things that I am concerned of with Fernando Mendoza. And I also think, because of the concerns that I have, I do think there's other things that we are, as a fan base, we're not taking into consideration. I think we're overvaluing kind of what he did at Indiana. And I'm going to go through some bullet points. And I think I hate to take away from Fernando, but these, in my opinion, these things you have to take in consideration to understand just how easy it was for Fernando Mendoza this past year. And so, guys, again, do me a favor, hit that hashtag Raiders. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Trust me, I'm game. I'm an open book. I've done my homework. And so if you make a valid point, I know this game enough. If you guys don't know my history, I've played the game for 15 years. I coached it for 23 years at the high school level. I started at the youth, moved to the high school level. I coached in California as well as Texas. And so I just kind of take that experience and I try to evaluate and trust my eyes. And my eyes haven't failed me. And trust me, the hate that I've gotten since starting this YouTube channel in 2023 has been real. But a lot of my takes that I was hated on have panned out to be true so far. And so hit that hashtag Raiders. Let me know. One thing, a couple things, you guys, I think we all need to take into consideration as it relates to why it was so easy for Mendoza. Number one, Indiana had the 4th best rushing team in college football. We all know a quarterback's best friend is a great rushing team, great rushing game, a great ground game. Sorry. And when you have a great ground game, it forces the defense to have to play man defense 80% of the time. They're going to bring pressure. They're going to go man to man across the board. And that's what opened up the RPO game. And so when you have one of the best rushing games in college football, it's going to open up the world if you can execute it very well. And Fernando Mendoza did. I'm not taking anything away, but it made it that much easier. Indiana had the 2nd most rushing attempts in college football. They had 659 rushing attempts. That was an average of 41 rushing attempts a game. On average, you're gonna run roughly around 60 plays on offense per game, right? They rushed on average 41 times. All right, I understand there was a lot of blowouts that they had, so that I do take that into consideration. But they ran the ball a hell of a lot more than they passed the ball. They leaned on the run game. They won games through the run game. Fernando Mendoza had his moments, don't get me wrong, but they leaned on the run game. If the run game didn't work, then the RPO wouldn't work or would be less effective, and Fernando Mendoza would be forced to have to do the 80% of what he was good at, not great, but was good at. All right, so only 3 times, keep this in mind, all right? Only 3 times did Fernando Mendoza throw the ball over 30 times. Out of the 16 games that he played, he threw the ball 30 times one game, 31 and 31. All right. 90% of the time, 90% of the time going into a game, it wasn't on his shoulders. They leaned on the ground game. All right. I believe him throwing the football, that was like the ranked 38th in college football. He threw the ball 379 times. It's an average of 23 times. So they ran the ball an average of 41. He threw the ball 23 times. That was ranked, again, just like kind of the yards, 38th in passing attempts. Now, he was ranked number 1 in touchdowns. I got to also combat that as well. He was very good, very efficient in the red zone. Won't take that away. Let's see. They were top 5. Okay, this is a very interesting statistic. He was top 5. Indiana was top 5 in running the ball on 3rd down. All right, go back in the Miami game. They could have sealed the game. They decided to run it on 3rd down on 3rd and 6. Right, again, just a very safe offense. So they were, again, I'll reiterate that they were top 5 running the ball on 3rd down. They played it safe. They did not put Fernando Mendoza in very tight situations unless they had to. Another thing to take into consideration, because they had a very good run game, Indiana's O-line, they were the finalists for the Joe Moore Award, which is the award for the best offensive line in college football. So he's taken snaps behind one of the best offensive lines in college football. That definitely helps. They were the 2nd best defense in college football. They had the 6th best starting field position. Sorry, let me rewind. They had the 6th best starting field position on offense last season. All right, you can go take a look at the Oregon game, right? The Oregon game, 3 times they started inside the Oregon's 10-yard line. So it made even winning the field position battle, even with all the bullet points that I'm ripping off, they were 6th best at starting field position last year. So Fernando Mendoza played with a very short field the majority of the season. And then last but not least, you take into consideration they had the 60th strength of schedule last year. They did not play a lot of really strong opponents. Now, he did have that gauntlet at the end, right? I'm not going to take that away from him. But if you look at the body of work, if you look at what he had to do, they played the 60th strength of schedule. So these are just some bullet points that you have to take into consideration when you look at Fernando Mendoza and just how well he executed. I just went through some of the cons. I start off with the pros, lots to like about them, but I start off with the cons. And then I think these are some of the things you have to take into consideration why I think we're just overvaluing Fernando Mendoza and what he did and not understanding that this was really the most complete team college football has seen in a very, very, very long time. And it made not just Fernando Mendoza's life easy, it made the team's life very easy. So Okay. Let's see. Let me know what you guys got. Let's see. All right. She loved me on payday. Mendoza's arm strength is questionable. He can't throw the out routes. I think he can. I think he's good with the out routes. I think his arm strength is perfectly fine for the NFL. I like, again, like I said in some of the pros that I have for him, the velocity that he has and the arm strength that he has when he has a clean pocket, he can settle his feet and throw on timing routes. The velocity is one of the best I saw in college football. Even on the run, I think his velocity is still fine. I don't have much issue. I think he'd be good. What up, Quirk? What's going on, man? I'm easy. He's not worth it. Want to trade back? What up, Rebel? What's going on, man? I also have to take into account that they had 1.8 drop percentage at India, 356 completions, only 6 drops. And that I agree with you, because I think a lot of people also kind of talked about Ty Simpson, right? Ty Simpson, that team as a whole had the second most drops in college football, and so you got to take that into consideration. I mean, again, that kind of goes back to, even though Indiana didn't have very many drops, I think that it just kind of overemphasizes the fact that it was a very complete team. And it made everything very easy. I mean, you can go and say Kalon Black, right, the running back over there, he was a really good running back. Well, guess what? He also had a very good offensive line. So you got to also take that for what it's worth, right? So it was just probably one of the best complete teams we have seen in college football in a lot of years. She loved me on payday again. Easier to evaluate when he faces 8 in the box and never sees double coverage. I'm with you. That's what that's what a top 4 running team does for you. Is it makes things a lot easier. You're not going to see double coverage. You're not going to see defenses that disguise coverages, because they're not going to be running zone a lot. They're going to be stuck in man coverage. They're going to start to put pressure on you. They're going to start blitzing, which opens up the hot routes. It opens up the RPO game. It makes everybody's life much easier. And in the moment you start hitting those RPOs, what happens? Linebackers start to soften up, which again, now you can't bring a lot of pressure. Now it opens up the run game. They were probably the most balanced and complete offense I've seen in a very long time. Fernando Mendoza was a very, very, very good piece to that offense. But then you can't discredit how good that offensive line was for that offense, or how good the receivers were for that offense. Mendoza is only as good as Elijah Surratt is with that back shoulder fades, and vice versa. So I don't want us to get into this hole of just thinking Fernando Mendoza is going to come in and execute at a very similar level or get to that like he looked like in Indiana. Because at the end of the day, only about 15 to 20% of what Fernando Mendoza did or was asked to do translates to the NFL. Let's see, Linda. That's why it's the NFL. You need to step your game up any way you can. I agree. I absolutely agree. Well, that's going to help QB numbers. Let's see. Francis Sit. Damn, I'm starting to think Mendoza's friends didn't go to his 21st birthday party. Let's see. Quirk. That's why the Miami games look like that. Interesting. Let's see. Alec. Fernando is humble enough to know he has plenty of work. I don't disagree. I think I put that in his pros. I think he's a very coachable guy. I think he's going to come to work and he's going to hit the ground running without question, right? But when you have to look at so many things and say, oh, well, he can be coached up to do it, or he can learn that, or he's a hard worker, so he's going to be able to do it. If you say that too many times, that creates too many question marks. You got to be able to go back and look at the body of work, and you got to be able to check that box as much as possible. You're never going to check all the boxes, but you got to check off enough boxes to go, okay, there's a body of work that shows me he could do it at the college level. There's a good chance he might be able to do it at the pro level. But no matter, even if Ty Simpson, right, I could say Ty Simpson was able to execute under center very well, and he did for the vast majority of the season. But even though he was able to do it, it doesn't mean he's going to be able to do it in the NFL. But even if he gets to the NFL and doesn't do it, at least I know that I checked that box and I said, I saw a body of work that tells me he was able to do it at the NFL. So it's more of a shock that he can't do it in the NFL. Whereas if you have a quarterback that you say, well, I don't see a lot of it, but I think he can do it, but then he fails to do it in the NFL, you're going to kick yourself in the ass and go, damn, I should have trusted my eyes and I should have trusted the film. We got to check as many boxes as we can. And that's how you evaluate film and understand how well they can transfer to the NFL. If you have too many question marks and if you go off of just the moments, which Fernando Mendoza has the moments, if you just go off of the moments and not the body of work, that's the easiest way to overdraft somebody. And I think that's what we're doing with Fernando Mendoza, in my opinion. Pillaging. So what I'm hearing is Fernando is more clutch because he came through with less opportunities. I don't want to say less opportunities. I think he with the opportunities that he had, he did become clutch. He was he rose to the occasion. Let's put it that way. And I'm not going to take that away from him. But again, it goes back to, I'm not going to go off of just the clutch performances. I also have to have the body of work behind it to understand what translates, right? If you have the body of work, but you also have that clutch gene, then man, that is a bona fide number one, and you're checking a ton of boxes, but you also got that clutch gene. That's what is worth a number one overall pick. So to me, I feel like that's where I fall off as the number one overall. Is I just don't think the body of work is there enough. And again, I just wrapped off 8 different bullet points to kind of show why I think it was so easy for Fernando and why he was put in such a picture perfect type of situation. And that is not going to be the case in the NFL, not even close. Even in the best situation, even with the best offensive line, he's still going to have to be able to climb the pocket. He's still going to have to go through progression. He's still going to have to work off structure. He's still going to have to move out the pocket. He's still going to have to be able to identify where the pressure is coming from and utilize his motions and utilize his strengths or his understanding of his team versus the defense and create matchups and understand where the hot routes are. He's going to have to do that even with the best offensive line and best weapons. But again, because he didn't do a lot of it in Indiana, it presents the question, can he do it? And I can't check that box. She helped me on payday. I remember evaluating Joe Flacco. He was the only QB in that draft who could throw off his back foot. Yeah, I remember. I didn't seeing a whole lot of Joe Flacco. But yeah, Joe Flacco is one of them. All right, here we go. John, what's going on, man? Don't forget the punt block for a touchdown that might have won the game against Miami. Man, you go back and you look at that Miami game. You're right. It was an entire team effort that first quarter. Also, I think Miami, you could make the argument. Miami really hurt themselves with penalties. I mean, there was that 3rd and 17 where they had that face mask. They had penalties. Miami really hurt themselves in that first half, but also Miami was missing their starting corner, and you can say they played a very soft coverage that first half. And then you go into the second half of the Miami game, and they started to bring that pressure on Fernando Mendoza. And you saw Fernando Mendoza, he struggled. He struggled a lot. That first throw, they quarter rolled him to his left. He tried to hit that deep out route to Elijah Surratt. Bad throw, inaccurate. Behind him wasn't good. He did have that moment of that. I think it was that 4th down with that back shoulder fade. They did a very good offensive design play call with, I think it was Omar Cooper, where they basically motioned him in, then back out, and it was just a one read throw. That was one completion. But then I point back to anything outside of a back shoulder fade, anything outside of an RPO, that throw right before the touchdown run. Another non-go ball, back shoulder fade, RPO. It was an inside slant to the back of the end zone, and it was high and behind him. Wasn't a good throw. And then on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 6, 4th and 6, on 4th and 6, they went for it, and he doesn't throw to get it. He ends up running. Great run. It was the wow moment. But again, he bailed himself out. The team had to be bailed out through the run game, and he took off and run. Great run, but I just need to see the body of work. And unfortunately, it's just not there consistent enough. Right, Rebel. No, that means his receivers made huge yardage gains after they caught the ball. They did at times. I like him. Simpson had a ton of talent around him at Bama, but played poorly in many games. He did not. I like him. I'm not sure if you were in here earlier. He did not have a ton of talent. When you say a ton of talent, I don't know how you judge that. His receiver room had the second most drops in college football. He had a really bad offensive line. That interior was absolutely horrible, and they had no run game. So I'm not sure what talent you're talking about. I mean, what they thought was going to be a damn good target, which was that Williams kid. I think he's a redshirt freshman. He had the second most drops in college football. So I don't know what talent you're pointing to. Let's see, Linda. So why do you think the Raiders like Mendoza if he didn't have so much? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure they do like him, but at the end of the day, I don't know. Right. I think people need to also understand that just because we pick him and just because we don't pick him. All right. I'm going to start with this one. If we do end up trading back and I'll be excited, I'm more about the picks. And if we do get two additional first rounders, I think in my opinion, I think it's a good move, but it doesn't ultimately mean I'm right. I'm just going to preface this. Even if they trade back like I want to, it doesn't mean I'm ultimately right. We have to wait this thing out 3 years to really understand what Fernando Mendoza does. Maybe Fernando Mendoza does. He goes and he proves that he answers all my question marks. He ends up being good, right? Also, if we do pick him at number 1, that doesn't automatically say I'm wrong, because I'm betting on, if I'm a betting man, I'm thinking we're picking him. But keep in mind, franchises also make bad decisions. You think the Jets, every time they pick, is a good decision? Shit, do you think every time we make a pick, it's a good decision? Just because we pick them doesn't mean it's the good decision. We have to wait. We have to wait it out. We have to understand what the future looks like with them in the NFL. So whether we pick them or we trade back doesn't prove anybody right or wrong. We have to understand how this thing plays out. And that's why for me, it's like when I was extremely high on Bo Nix and we didn't pick him. Everybody's like, oh, see, the Raiders we would have traded up for him if we wanted Bo Nix, so you're wrong. Yeah, let's wait this thing out. And Bo Nix, without the injury, I think would have been in the Super Bowl. So, Rebel, Alabama's wide receiver had a 9.3 drop rate, 30 drops. Drop rate, 30 dropped the balls, 30 drop balls last season. They had no run game, 78 yards a game. Okay. You're right. What up, Daniel? What's going on, man? Rundown, what's going on, brother? What's happening, man? We got to get the back and forth because, man, look, there's a lot of guys I respect with this content creating world. 2 guys you definitely want to go check out. Check out Rundown, man. He's grinding. Rundown, I definitely respect your opinion. Love to get not just you, but also like Jason. Jason, I know you like Fernando Mendoza. I'd love to jump on and we can kind of do a little back and forth because at the end of the day, I want to go on and talk with people that I think understand the game well enough to where even if you make a point, I think I understand the game well enough to either I agree or I can have a very fruitful conversation as to why I disagree. And I think you guys can do the same. And so I think it would be good prior to the draft because I think everybody needs to kind of get their own out and really understand it. Let's see. Well, Rundown, man, I appreciate you popping up in here, guys. Definitely go check out Rundown, Jason, as well as Jeff, man, Leo, Cheeto Linus, Jay, LV Raider Nate, my guys, Chris Protection Podcast, as well as these for Severe Rated, man. Go check those guys out for sure. Milk and Beezy, I'm taking Mendoza just off the aura. I've had people tell me that they're going to take him just because he's a Christian. Like it's a wild take. She loved me on payday under 49% completion when facing the blitz. That says everything I need to know about a first round grade. Are you talking about that with Fernando or Ty? Because I don't know that percentage. Let me know. Let's see. Quirk, I saw a stat where Mendoza had 129. Ty had 170 snaps under pressure. Mendoza sacked 24 times. Ty sacked 28, 18 sack percentage for Ty, 24 sack, 18% sack. Ty had 24% sack. Hopefully I'm reading that right. I saw a stat where Mendoza had 125. Ty had 170 snaps under pressure. Mendoza sacked 24. Ty sacked 28. Okay. I think I got it now. My bad. And that's what's tough. I think also if you look at the way that the pressure did come for both those guys, right? Mendoza had the RPO to combat pressure, where Ty Simpson really didn't have it. Ty Simpson didn't really have the RPO, unfortunately. And so that's where it was difficult to kind of assess both those. So it's tough. It's tough, but man, I appreciate you throwing those stats out. Quirk. Jason, you're saying, so moral of the story is we need a run game, which if you go back to car days, you have to be able to run the ball. I think you need a run game in general, right? I think Clint Kubiak is going to lean on the run game, so I think either way. And I think that's the other argument, which is really difficult, is we just drafted a guy number 6 overall. So, are you going to go number 1 overall with a guy that is probably going to hand the ball off 65% of the time? There's an argument to be had why you trade back, given the fact that you're going to lean on Genty, because you got to get your number 6. You got to get your worth out of your number 6 overall pick. I would just make that argument, but that argument can go back and forth. Quirk, so the trade back is more valuable option for Raiders than the prospect quarterback this year. I think it is. I really do. Eric, man, I appreciate you throwing a super chat out there. Shout out to you, man. Great. You're saying great points. Keep up the great work, man. I appreciate you. I know you're out here in the area, man. I got to hit you up. I think there are going to be some events going on as the time goes on. I'm going to the draft, so I'm not going to link up for the draft, but even after the draft, we're definitely going to be getting together. And so I'll hit you up, man. I got your email. You're one of my giveaway winners, man. Appreciate you popping up in here. Severe popping up in here, man. People here in Alabama and just assume they have a great roster based on past accomplishments. Yeah. I truly do feel like NAL is kind of screwing that up for a lot of teams, a lot of prior organizations that or teams and colleges that were really good. I think NIL is really going to start to saturate a lot of these teams, and the talent's going to move around a lot. I mean, I really do think NIL is the only reason why in Indiana can win a national championship, to be dead honest. And I think Kirk Cignetti kind of cracked the code a little bit. And I think that it's just me throwing it out there. I have nothing to really base this on or what have you, but I do think that Kurt Cignetti might have a short run because a lot of these other colleges are going to try to figure out what he just did. They're going to do something very similar. And now it's just going to make it more competitive. I'm not going to say all of a sudden Indiana is going to be a trash team, but I just don't think Indiana is going to be able to repeat the dominance that we just saw as a collective team year in and year out. I think they're going to kind of fall off a little bit. They might come back, but I think I don't know if they're going to be able to repeat what we just saw year over year with the whole NIL stuff. Ryu, Ken, yeah, the Bama of today is not the Bama of Saban. It is not. I'm with you. I'm with you. She loved me on payday. This is the only real NFL talk on YouTube. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I get a lot of hate. Don't get me wrong, but I do my best to try to give you my takes, and they tend to work out more times than not. Again, it's not like bragging or tooting my own horn, but at the same time, as much as people are going to come on here and call me out when I don't have the right take, trust me, they will get me as much as they possibly can. At the same time, a lot has panned out for me, and a lot were not popular takes whatsoever. Right to Hawaii, Alabama had NIL way before NIL became fashionable. Alabama had NIL way before NIL was legal, right? I'm with you. LKM, yes, Simpson didn't have that good of an offensive line. However, he had SEC talent, weapons, wide receivers, and such defense that could keep them in games. Simpson is young and has upside as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we can call SEC talent weapons the same as, you could have called that 5-6 years ago. So, but trust me, Alabama did not have the same type of weapons you expect out of an SEC school. So he just didn't have a whole lot, didn't have a great defense over there. Good defense. I think they were top 20. but it's tough. See, Gabe, I said it before and I'll say it again. Beware of Bama quarterbacks. They are almost always surrounded by a team that's better than the team who drafted them. Okay. And I'm going to go back to say this just kind of one more time, is you cannot look at the recent Alabama team like the previous ones, because just like Raider Hawaii just said, the Bama teams of today are not the Bama teams of the past. They were using NIL prior to NIL being legal. So I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. I think I said that. I said that about Mac Jones. I said that about Mac Jones. I said that about who did I say that about? Because look, I grew up in Southern California, so I had to be around a bunch of SEC fans back when they built their own dynasty with Pete Carroll and all that stuff. I'm a Florida Gator fan. But I learned basically through that stint of USC that you have to be very, very cautious of quarterbacks that have way too much talent around them. You have to be, because it ends up being too easy, the talent around them, and to bail them out at times. And how are they going to be able to work through that in the NFL when you're not going to have the comfort of the talent around you? And so I am very, very careful of overvaluing quarterbacks that have the talent around them. Fernando is that. Fernando is exactly that. Now, USC was that, right? Florida was that for quite a while. Alabama is not that anymore. Alabama was that back in like the Bryce Youngs, the Tuas, the Jalen Hurts, like stuff like that, right? Alabama was that for a very long time. You can't look at Alabama the same way now. It would be like saying, oh, well, because Alabama had that run, I'm still going to look at USC like that because of Matt Leinart and all that back in the day. It's just not the same. So I don't look at Ty Simpson as a quarterback that's coming out of college with all this talent around him. He just didn't have it. But Fernando Mendoza did. And I said this after the national championship game, and I finally was able to kind of give my full evaluation of Fernando. And that was the first thing I said. I said, I learned from that SEC, Matt Leinart, all that stuff, those days, that I'm very, very cautious. And pillaging for fun, I think he said it. See, Gabe, you're kind of saying it right now, and that you're literally describing Fernando Mendoza. And I'm very, very cautious of overvaluing quarterbacks that are just riddled with talent around them. DK, what's going on, man? NIL leveled the playing field, as I think the bigger programs with deep pockets can't buy their teams anymore. 100% agree. Is maybe why Saban left when he did, because he couldn't necessarily control the money. I actually said when Nick Saban left, I think he came out publicly and said it, but I said it before he did that. I said that's probably why Nick Saban left, because he saw the writing on the wall. He saw that you are no longer going to be able to do it under the table like Alabama did and a lot of SEC schools did back in the day, but you no longer can do it under the table. You now have to be legitimate about it, and it's going to even the playing field. I think Nick Saban got out before it got crazy. Lee, what's going on? Couple more, and I want to get off of here because, again, my guys are live. I don't want to take up too much of their time. Will be the first time in NFL history to draft a quarterback in first round with 15 starts. Beck's way better, 1,100 yards. I do like Carson Beck's experience. I don't know if you're saying that I want to draft Ty Simpson at number 1. No, I don't. Not at all. I have a second round grade on Ty Simpson, and as it stands right now, I have a late second round grade on Fernando Mendoza. I could even see him, depending on how the quarterbacks move. I would argue that he could even sneak his way into the early third, and that's how I would have him, given the fact that if the Jets don't get a quarterback round 1 or round 2, if the Cardinals don't, if Pittsburgh doesn't, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the third round, they want to trade up. Even the Browns, if the Browns aren't sold on Shedeur Sanders, maybe that happens. So that's what I have on Fernando is a late second round grade on him, and I have Ty Simpson as a early second round grade. Alec Grant, Alabama didn't have a Josh Jacobs type back last year. They didn't even have an Alabama offensive line type last year. I mean, their offensive line was horrible. Proctor is not very good. I'm not a big fan of him. And then that interior offensive line was horrible. It was horrible. Quirk, real quick, do you see any parallel in what Geno went through and Ty Simpson? And wouldn't that be what we would want to see in our team result? and Ty Simpson, and wouldn't that be what we want to see in our team results considering? So are you saying that in parallel, it's kind of what we went through with Geno last year? It's very similar, to be honest with you. Ty Simpson did not have a good offensive line. Geno didn't have a good offensive line. I think Geno is better than what we saw last year. Look, Geno, it was a bad run game. We could all say we probably had the worst receiver room in the National Football League. We had a bad offensive line. So I think Geno is better than what we saw last year. Is he much better? I don't think so. But I think he is better than what we saw last year. But you take a look at what Ty Simpson had to deal with. Yeah, it's unfortunate that I think Ty Simpson executed at a very high level, given the fact that he did not have very good resources around him. So, but I will go more into Ty Simpson. I wanted to kind of break down Fernando Mendoza just because of just the recent talk. So Lee said, no, I ain't on Mendoza all day long. Or no, I am in on Mendoza all day long. I'm not sure. Not sure how to read that one. What up, Geomex? I think you're saying Simpson 6'2", 208. He really should stay in college like Moore did. Possibly. So, look, there's things that I don't like about Simpson, right? Yes. I think he's even 6'1", right? 6'1". He did have some injury history. You do see some errant throws here and there. I don't know if that was because of just the pressure that he saw. There were some bad throws mixed into what he did. And so, again, that's why I have a second-round grade on him. If we did pick him in the first, the only reason why I think we pick him in the first, the only scenario that I would like to see if we picked him in the first, this is a scenario I'd like to see, to be honest, is I'd trade back with the Browns. You trade back to number 6, which means the Browns have to give up an absolute haul to go up to number 1, right? And so you'd have to probably get the Browns' two first round picks, a first round pick next year, maybe a second this year and a second next year. That's probably what you're going to end up getting, right? And so in that case, you get probably the top offensive lineman. I like Francis Mongoa. Go get Francis Mongoa at the number 6 pick. Anchor this offensive line, have one of the most improved offensive lines for last year with Linderbaum, and then you got yourself a right tackle. Now you're opening up some holes for Genti. Now you're doing a better job of protecting the quarterback. And then at 24, you get Ty Simpson. The reason why I would get Ty Simpson at 24 is because you can get him on a 5th-year option. If you think Ty Simpson is good enough to get in the first round and you want to work with him, then you try to get him on that 5th-year contract. Even though I have a second-round grade on him, I think you can get him in the second round. But if you are in the first round, and if you trade back with the Browns and you get that additional second-round pick, now you got 2 picks in the second round to build the crap out of this interior defensive line. You can get a top-tier receiver. That's, in my opinion, you start to build. And you have 2 additional first-rounders next year and 2 additional second-rounders to continue to build this thing. You bring in a veteran, maybe, and you let Ty Simpson sit for at least a season to learn and understand the game at the NFL level. Again, that's if you go quarterback number 1. I'd love it if Ty Simpson fell to us at number 2, at the second round. But that's if you go quarterback number 1. That would be my ideal situation. All good, Lee. All good, Lee. Alec, Carson Beck played 7 years in college. He did, man. If you want experience, go get it. Go get it. Severe, man. I want to end with you, big dog. I think he's saying Ty produces in less ideal circumstances, which were similar to the circumstances that Geno faced and struggled considerably. Yeah, I think sorry, I was trying to tie all that together. I agree with you. I do think that's what I think it was Cork shot to you. I think that's what you're saying. I think he did, man, to be honest with you. And he had the I think he had the, if I remember correctly, he had the 11th hardest strength of schedule last season. Ty Simpson did. I think it was the 11th, either 11th or 17th. I can't remember. But he didn't have an easy schedule either. I mean, he went against that Georgia team, and he did some work against that Georgia team the first time around. So, and through the first 8 to 9 games, everybody was saying Ty Simpson was the best and most important player to his team in college football. He was in the conversation as the top Heisman Trophy candidate through basically 9 games. It did fall off, you know what I'm saying? And will remains to be seen just kind of what that means and how severe some of those injuries were, and did it really plague him enough to result in the performance that we saw? No, never know. So we just gotta see what the medical says if it really comes out. Ryu Ken, Kubiak might prefer Ty. The Shanahan guys are very nitpicky about their quarterbacks. I actually think I'd make the argument that Clint Kubiak is looking at Ty Simpson and he's saying, I can work with that guy because my pro comp, and this was a few weeks ago. This was a few weeks ago before everybody else kind of start throwing it out there. My pro comp to Ty Simpson is Brock Purdy. And I would get a Brock Purdy in the second round. That's kind of what that's the value I see in Ty Simpson. And Clint Kubiak coached with Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they run very similar systems. And so I think that they both look at the quarterback and the quality of quarterback that they need for their system in very similar ways. And I think Clint Kubiak is looking at Ty Simpson like, I can work with that kid. So it's up to Clint Kubiak to look at it and go, is Ty Simpson worth a trade back with multiple first rounders if someone wants to give that to me and I could work with this kid? Or does he truly think Fernando Mendoza is the guy and not take a Ty Simpson with additional first round picks? He's got to weigh that. I don't know, what he's thinking, but I do think a Ty Simpson would work within a Clint Kubiak system very, very, very well. I do have my concerns with Ty Simpson, but we'll see. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Lee said, I thought it for 6 years for Beck. He should be ready for the Jets. We'll see what the Jets end up doing. Ryu, you're saying he would go with a quarterback with less traits but knows the footwork system. Alec, I think Simpson would be the number 2 quarterback taken, probably still. I think that there's a lot of people that do like Simpson. I do think there's a lot of people that do like Ty Simpson. If you're in desperate need of a quarterback and you like him, maybe you do pull the trigger and just take him at number 2, knowing that there's teams behind you that there's a good chance they can pull the trigger. I could see the Cardinals pulling the trigger just because Mike LaFleur comes from that Sean McVay system, and I think Sean McVay would like a Ty Simpson at quarterback. I could see the Jets taking him at 16. I could even see a world where the Rams might pull the trigger on Ty Simpson at number 1 because they got to think of life after Matt, whatever his goddamn name is. So Matt Stafford. So, all right, guys, I appreciate it. I'm going to get the hell out of here. I jumped on here. I've been on here for about 2 hours, man. Do me a big favor. Double tap that screen. I hope I didn't piss off too many people with my takes, but hopefully I at least proved to you that I thought it through, that I did my homework, that I evaluated the film enough, and I'm going to follow it up with game film breakdown of both Fernando Mendoza as well as Ty Simpson, but I'm also not going to just show you a couple highlights. I'm going to show you the body of work and what to me it feels like it shows. And I'll prove to you kind of what I'm saying. But then again, I do it live to get your feedback, but that's up to you to kind of digest the information I'm showcasing, and you can definitely make your own assessment. So, yes, Alec, I'm sorry. Stafford, I've been talking a lot. I need to drink some goddamn water. DK, does the lack of game experience for Simpson at large concern you? It does. It really does. The height does as well. But again, he worked at such a high level with the lack of weapons around him that it helps with improving just what I think his draft stock would be. And so, again, that's why I put him at a second round grade. If he did not work well, right, if he didn't look as good as he did those first 9 games, then, man, I'd drop him probably down to like maybe a 4th round grade. So, but he looked extremely good through those first 9 with the lack of weapons around him. That's why. And a part of the grade also, you have to determine it based on how many quarterback needy teams are out there and who do you think could pull the trigger. And so that's why I got a second round. Appreciate it. LKM, Jets and Browns will still be bad this season. Yeah, the one thing that scares me about the Browns is apparently Todd Monken knows Ty Simpson's dad extremely well because Ty Simpson's been a college head coach for a lot of years. And so That worries me. That will he get past the Browns? I don't know. But does Todd Monken really like Shedeur Sanders? I have no goddamn clue. But Todd Monken and Ty Simpson's dad are apparently very, very good friends. Take it for what it's worth. John, appreciate you, man. Guys, do me a massive favor. Double tap that screen, hit the sub button. We're going to break down more game film. Shout out to my guys. Typically, we're in the Raider War Room with the Severe Raider as well as Chris Petecarroll podcast. Go check them out as well. They're part of the Raider War Room. We hit you on Wednesdays and Sundays. If some crazy news pops up, we'll try to jump on real quick and hit you guys with a live. So do me a favor, double tap that screen. But at the same time, we break down game film of our game during the season every single week. Also, I will be at the draft with my guys, with Chris as well as Severe. So tap in. Hit us up on social media. I'm _805 Raider on Instagram. Shoot me a message if you're going to be at the draft. It's great to chop it up with people, put names to faces. But if you're also going to be in the SoCal area, there is a massive Raider event on May 16th, the Raider Nation Summer Kickoff. I'll be there. Raiders Crusaders puts that on. And so shout out to him on Instagram. Go check him out. I'll be in Bakersfield. Myself, Severe, Cheetah Linus is going to be there, and it's going to be fun. So I appreciate it. I don't think I got too much hate in the chat. I appreciate you guys, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Remember, go tap in with Jeff. They're going live. 401 Raider Jeff, J Raider, as well as Leo Cheeto Linus, LV Raider Nate. Go check them out. So, guys, I appreciate it. I will hit you guys on Sunday. We'll start doing some mock drafts and have a little bit of fun with that. So, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out of here.